2, 1. Boom! We are live, and it's Saturday. I'm joined by my friend Scott Walter. He is also a rocket scientist. He's also a roboticist. He's also a great tour guide of the Kennedy Space Center. But unfortunately, I'm not in Florida right now, which I had planned to be in Florida because I re-injured myself. And so wanted to get into that a little bit, share kind of my update with what's going on there. Also say that I have kind of fixed the lighting in my studio. Of course, it's not perfect, but made some improvements.
I don't think anyone's noticing the lighting in your studio, Ellie. I think everyone wants to know, what's the outfit you're wearing?
So who is the space cowboy? Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos
yeah, I guess
wears
so.
the spacesuit, he wears the cowboy hat. So I am space cowgirl now.
Okay.
I got a Stetson Skyline. This is like a $300 hat inspired by Kimball Musk after meeting him. I'm like, I got to rock the cowboy hat.
How many gallons is it?
How many gallons? I don't know.
Because I talk about a 10-gallon hat. And I don't know what that means. Does it actually fit 10 gallons in there? So does it say in there what it is? Maybe someone in the live stream can tell us exactly what a 10-gallon hat means.
But the rule is don't take your hat off in public because you don't want to have hat hair. But anyway, I have the hat and I have a spacesuit. And I thought, you know what? Let's combine the two. My last name is Sheriff. It makes sense for me to be a space cowgirl. And I have to do something to get my mind off the fact that I might have to have another surgery. So people are hearing that and they're thinking, why would you need another surgery, Eliana? You just broke your femur. Are you addicted to having surgeries? Of course not. So recently in physical therapy, I was doing a single leg exercise and I tore my labrum. So there's a labrum in your shoulder area and a labrum in your hip area. This is regarding the hip. I also sprained my ligamentum teres. Long story short, my orthopedic surgeon has now referred me to a new surgeon who is a sports medicine specialist, and we may be looking at surgery. I still haven't talked to this new surgeon for my options, but the MRI says that we have a complex tear. And my sister, actually, shout out to my sister, who's a veterinarian and a radiologist, looked at the results and she's like, I really think you're going to have surgery. So I'm back on crutches. I'm not happy about this. And I've been trying to deal with my depression about this. And I think it boils down to being active is a really big part of my identity. And so to have to be set back again and possibly looking at another surgery, more recovery time. I'm on the crutches right now. I can kind of walk without the crutches, but I just tore it and I'm limping and
Can you swim? Have you tried swimming?
Probably could. I haven't tried yet because I'm trying to give it a few days. I did go to the gym yesterday with my crutches and I did an upper body workout.
Okay, good. But that'll make you feel better. You need the endorphins, no doubt about it.
Exactly.
When you go cold turkey from exercising, it really makes you grumpy.
Exactly.
And it's very important to go ahead and burn those calories.
But I also can't exercise all day. So I'm like, okay, I can't walk around downtown Austin. I can't go on my bike as of now. So what can I do? I can live stream. And what do we have for live stream? We have this spacesuit with a with a NASA patch.
We get patches. All right.
And then
we got the alien patch. Okay. Yeah.
And I just think it's kind of fun and kind of goofy. And so anyway, I reached out to Scott. I said, are you doing anything? Do you want to talk about space stuff? Because, 150 of you guys are online right now. And a lot of people have been wanting me to talk about Starliner and the recent notice to stand down on that impending launch for good reason. And so, so I'm reading some of these comments here. Mitchell says, hopefully your insurance covers it. And Scott, you know about my insurance, obviously, too.
It seems like it. I think it should. So.
Well, I paid max out of pocket and I've already made that whole payment. So thank you.
You're good until January 1st.
Well,
so make sure if you have to have surgery, make sure it's this year. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay that other $7,500 next calendar year. So,
and you were saying that it's called arthroscopic,
or is it or is it laparoscopic? Yeah, there's probably going to be some kind of simple surgery. Now, this is not me saying this. This is the discussion I had with Gary afterwards to sort of understand a little bit. And for those who weren't in the live stream the other day, I know we'll probably put out feelers to see what Gary's probably got like a real life, so he's probably busy today.
So, wait, this is a real life? This is a real life?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we had planned it, he would have put it aside, but I'm sure he's out doing some stuff. And, he explained it pretty well with his hands yesterday, or was it Thursday or Friday? And he's talking about that. You've got your femur, which comes up like this, and you get the ball on there, which is acetabulum, and then in your hip you get the socket that it kind of fits in, right? And of course you can see if it's going to fit in, it can also maybe come out unless something comes around to hold it in. And I think what ends up happening is that you've got a ligament of some sort that's in there that is attached to there, which is why I disappeared for a second to get the rubber band to show that, and that maybe something has happened to that ligament. I suspect that's what's gone wrong.
Right. Well, and apparently labral tears don't heal themselves.
Yes, they don't. They either don't heal themselves or they just don't heal well, because if I remember, the difference between a tendon and a ligament has something to do with how many attachment points. It's like muscle to muscle, is that a ligament, and bone to bone is tendon, or something like that. Or I probably got it mixed up, but they're very similar, and you have really bad blood flow around them, which is why they just don't heal really well. They love to get inflamed, and they just don't heal very well. So usually you need like anti-inflammatories, and sometimes like even aspirin is a good, and so what might be better is aspirin.
This is Toradol. This is Toradol. So it's a stronger ibuprofen, essentially.
Okay.
Thank you, St. Miles, for the super chat, sending some Stardust to help you heal. Yes, I have been fighting the depression since this happened on Tuesday. It has been, it's lame.
No, I think what the surgery is going to do is if you do nothing, it might heal. It just might take a really long time to heal. And the idea of the surgery is it might heal a little bit faster.
And it's pretty it's invasive, but it's minimally invasive. And apparently most people can go home the next day. So
yes. And they're not really opening you up. They're just probably going in for a couple of points.
But I've heard it's 4 to 6 months recovery time.
And it's probably even longer than that if you do nothing.
Okay.
It could be that if you do absolutely nothing, it takes even longer, and then the results might be worse. So it's something you definitely have to. I would talk to Gary after you've had all the other consulting, because then he can go in and then sort of cut through everything and really, because he's had that surgery, except on his shoulder. Okay. Yes, he tore his shoulder, and so he's had the same thing, and so he will know a little bit.
Is this what happens when you enter your 30s?
Yes. Welcome to the 30s. Things start going downhill from here.
Like I've told a joke, but what the heck?
It's Yep. Welcome to your 30s. So it's a there's like that S curve that was kind of up, things are slowing down, and then you get your 30s, you start to get the S curve that goes down. So don't worry, it's not until you get about 50 that you really get to the tipping point, and that things start to go downhill even faster.
Look at this comment. Let's face it. Neil says, let's face it, you're better off in space full time where legs are optional.
Yeah. Now there's one thing I have to say. To complete your uniform, you have to get the sheriff's badge. And the question is, should the sheriff's badge go on the hat? Right in the center of the hat, like a marshal?
The only thing that would go on this hat is an Elon signature. That's the only thing.
That's the that's the only thing. So where are you going to put your sheriff's badge?
This side.
Because you've got that. I guess it's that side. Okay. Or are you going to have to move the NASA patch? I mean, that's what I kind of want. Because isn't the sheriff's badge supposed to be over your heart?
How about this? Starship.
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I should put this.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what that's for. That's what every time you go.
Exactly.
And you should be able to order the patches from the other ones that you've seen. So someone must be able to get, because you've seen how many launches are. You can probably get an Artemis patch.
I've seen several launches.
You've seen a couple of space. Have you kept track of the SpaceX ones? We have to go. You have to look at the dates and find out.
Yeah, but there's
been too many. I don't know if the ones in my backyard count. I don't think those count. I think if you don't hear the sound, you weren't there, right?
I should deck out this suit. You're right.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Do we get that Falcon Heavy? Does that one count?
Oh no,
We
I don't
heard
think
it.
so.
We just didn't see it.
I mean,
We get the patch.
I saw like
Which
the,
one? USS.
second
Yeah.
half of it.
Yep. USSF
Oh,
44.
you're talking about Falcon Heavy. I thought you were talking about the one where I didn't turn around in time.
No,
That
no,
one
no,
I
no,
also
no, no,
didn't
no,
really see.
no. I mean, you missed 2 launches that you were at.
Isn't that crazy? You travel to Florida and somehow 2 times I've missed launches that
Well, don't feel bad because Tim Dodd, he actually missed the Starship launch a little bit. I think his eyes were down when he suddenly he was getting ready to leave the set because remember they stopped it at what T-minus 40 seconds.
Yes.
And they're going to do a recycle, and he said he couldn't hold it anymore, and he was getting ready to take his earphone. Yeah, you should watch it. He was ready to take his earphones off. And something like the corner of his eye, he may have just noticed, and he was like, "Oh, look!" So they didn't even have the countdown going or anything. It just, boop, there it goes. Because another 5 seconds, he would have been in there, and they would have been, "Tim, get out there, get out there." So
wow.
yeah, okay. And to be fair, I sort of missed one of those from my backyard about 2 weeks ago, or it was about a month ago. I tweeted out, the one I ended up putting the Starship logo over. The reason why it doesn't start from the horizon is it was like 2 a.m. or something like that, one of those launches, and I'm up there and I'm trying to get the live stream to work, and the live stream is just like, oh, it's not starting. And I was pretty sure I had it on live and everything. I'm sitting there just waiting for it to go. So wow, they must have delayed the launch because it's exactly the time it's supposed to go off. I'm fumbling with that, trying to do it, and then suddenly I look up and then I was, there it is, and I gotta push the button on the camera. So yeah, guilty as charged on that one as well.
Let's see. We have a couple of folks watching from Germany. Greetings from Germany, and I wanted to pull up.
So yeah, guten Abend. This is Viertel vor 10 in Deutschland, huh?
Yes, let's talk about the rocket factory Augsburg.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
now, fun fact. Augsburg is near Munich, but do you know what else is in Augsburg?
No. Well, no, I guess I don't.
Augsburg is the headquarters of KUKA Robotics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. It's a charming old Bavarian city. Sometimes they call it Little Munich because it's very similar. It's a little bit up on a hill. Very scenic. Definitely worth going there if you're ever in Germany. And yes, I understand. I didn't follow it that closely, but I think it had like the first private European rocket. I'm not of a certain type. Maybe it was like a full flow type of design that they were able to successfully test. So they did a test on that.
Well,
so
why don't we, so can you share?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and let me play the video really quickly. Okay. And then we'll talk about this because they actually sent me a press release. I've been trying to coordinate an interview with them for a while. One of them, I couldn't make the time. So anyway, let's give them some airtime. So let's watch this.
Yes, absolutely.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Wow.
That's good. Sehr schön.
So this is, 280 seconds, and this is the first full duration hot fire of a staged combustion stage in Europe.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's nice.
I have the press release here. Have you been following much of this?
I just saw a glimpse of this. I haven't been following that one that closely.
Okay.
But it's nice to see that there are other private companies, not just in the U.S., that are wanting to do this.
Right.
So there's the excitement to go ahead and build rockets everywhere. The more you have, the more unique designs you're going to come up with. It's always a great idea to have other people's thoughts and ideas. And I've seen there's a couple of people out there who I follow out on Twitter that are in Germany, and their insights are remarkable.
Yeah.
That's why I follow them, because they are always able to kind of scramble together, thoughts and ideas and answer questions by actually, doing the math, running through, understanding the theory behind it. I
So
think, yeah.
So, RFA's chief executive officer said this successful test is a massive leap forward for us. It's a full confirmation of our strategy to develop a small launcher that is both very powerful and achieves cost leadership. With this full duration test, we have demonstrated once again that we are able to complete more milestones with less but smarter investments than any of our competitors. So, it's great to see it. Congratulations to them. Wow, this video is still going on. It's pretty long. But that is newsworthy. Let's see, they tweeted this yesterday. So I'm not sure if any of you guys would be interested if I interview them, but
Of course, I would say for sure.
You think so? You would watch it?
Oh yeah, I'd watch it. I'm sure a lot of other people will watch it. Why not? They could probably answer a lot of very interesting questions. What are their goals? What do they want to do with it? So I think it's RFA. So it's Rocket Factory Augsburg.
Augsburg.
Yep, that's what the A stands for, the end. And just also for interesting trivia, as I said, KUKA is headquartered there, and the A in KUKA also stands for Augsburg. So the name of KUKA is actually, it's an acronym as well. It stands for Keller and Knappich Augsburg. So those are the two founders. Okay. So, but it's a strange sounding name. Yes. So RFA, yeah. And so they probably have some literally lofty goals on what they would like to do.
Well, and I just want to thank Al for the super chat. Have a pint of your favorite ice cream. Probably won't be eating too much ice cream as, not going to be able to be as active as I was hoping to get back to being. So, but I do appreciate the sentiment. And yeah, so obviously that's some news, but I think the bigger news that really everyone's been talking about is Starliner. And once again, the delay, and, Angry Astronaut released a video saying this could be a final stand down. So let's maybe talk about that.
Correct. So I think there were two issues. I think I'd even heard of a third issue as well. So I think there was like two official ones that Angry talked about. Right. The first one had to do with the parachutes.
Yes.
And now, if I recall, they have, like Apollo, 3 mains that come up. And the idea is you get redundancy in the system, that if one of your parachutes snags, the other 2 are still sufficient to be able to bring you down for a safe landing. Now, the thing to remember what Boeing did, which is, like I said, the first time would be having a manned spacecraft coming down with a parachute landing on land, except for the shuttle, which landed like an aircraft. So Mercury, Gemini, Apollo all landed in the water and splashed down. And of course, we see that the Dragon is doing the same thing, because there's a certain safety cushion there with coming down on water as opposed to coming on land. If you want to come down on land, you need some extra bracing, or you got to come down a little bit slow. So my understanding that even the astronauts have come down on all of the Soviet and Russian capsules have always returned to land. So we know it can be done, but the American astronauts that have been on there say that it comes down kind of hard. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the reason they always landed inland was all about secrecy. It was like they didn't want anyone to be able to see the returns, because when the American spacecraft were landing out in the oceans, they were in international waters, and the Russian fishing trawlers were always famously nearby, kind of checking out what was going on. So if you want a certain amount of secrecy, you could do that. But it's not necessarily the safest way. It's kind of convenient. You don't have to have the boats going on out there. You don't have to worry about people getting seasick and everything else. And the concern that, the salt water is going to get in there and damage some sort of equipment. So you have to be a little bit extra careful on that. So they had to design it to land on land. And I'm surprised they used 3 parachutes, whereas I think SpaceX is using 4, which is like more than they had in Apollo. It's like, well, they're the ones that are landing in the water. You think they would have 3 before the other way. But evidently it's that the redundancy is if one of those lines fails, you have the other 2.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But when that happens, that means the other 2s literally have to pick up the slack. And pick up the slack means they both get like an extra, I think, 50% load on there. And it's like, oops, we didn't design the bearing surfaces or where the attachment points are to be strong enough to carry that extra load. And when I heard that, I said, that's an amateur mistake. I mean, what kind of designers are we talking about here that, clearly, that you already have to have a safety factor of probably, aerospace can be kind of weird. Your safety factors, you try to get as close to 1 as possible, just because you try to keep everything as low as possible, but still you want to have a little bit high. Usually if you're designing a bridge, your safety factors are much higher. And the reason why it's much higher is that if you could build a bridge with a safety factor like 1.5, but no one would go on it because it would sway so much. Like if you've ever been on a swaying bridge, so when you're driving over a bridge, you don't want to feel it going. So it's really designed to make sure people feel good on it. And those bridges probably have a safety factor like 5 or 10 in some cases. It's ridiculous how much they can do. So you would need that in order to get rid of the swaying. But in that case, it's just like they're trying to lighten the load and they lightened it in the wrong place.
So there's not just the issue with the soft links, those lines that run from Starliner to the parachutes, but also this flammable tape.
That also surprised me. It's like, didn't they learn the lessons from Apollo 1? And now, so that's another thing, is that whatever is a special insulating tape, which is made out of some kind of glass, which may have some really nice properties. But the first time, usually when I hear glass and it's like fiberglass, I go, whoa, sometimes in certain conditions that can go up in flames. So it may not have been the best choice. And what does that mean? They have to find a substitute for it.
Right.
And there's, I'm sure, a lot of wiring in there. And the question is, what's the flame source they're kind of concerned with that something like that could happen? Now, I mean, that was part of the problem with Apollo 1, is that everything they put in there was non-flammable and standard temperatures and pressures. Okay. Pure oxygen atmosphere. But yeah, so the other problem with Apollo 1 is that so many of the things in there would not normally catch fire, or fire would not go very, very quickly in normal atmospheric conditions. However, if you're in a pure oxygen atmosphere, and especially one that is pressurized to 1 atmosphere, as opposed to the partial pressure, which is like, was it like 5 psi? I think oxygen is like 5 psi versus the 14 that we have. So that's the partial pressure of it. So that means you don't have that many molecules that close. But when you have full atmospheric pressure, which the Apollo 1 test needed, because they were on the ground, they were doing a test, and they decided they did not want to have nitrogen in there. It was going to be pure oxygen. So those things kind of combined, that when they get the spark, everything went, and then you still had gravity. The other thing about fire generally needs gravity in order to be able to spread. So in space, we're not quite sure how fire works in space in some cases, because you need the convection. I mean, that's the main reason, is that what you have with gravity is that you've got change in density of the gas. Something gets hot, and when it's hot, it's light and it goes up. And when that happens, you create circulation. So if you wanted to get something to burn in space, you would have to make sure you have kind of what you call forced convection as opposed to natural convection. And it's the natural convection that can kind of cause flames to spread and everything else. So in theory, in space, it's a little bit harder for things to literally go up in flames, because there's no real easy way for the flames to propagate. Right. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Right. And so we don't know what the strange things are, but that's a bit odd. And I see someone wants to hear about your surgery again.
We'll just kind of recap again, because we have some more people that have joined. Is another surgery regarding Ellie's leg. So this is regarding my kind of hip area. Tuesday, I was at physical therapy, trying to do the right thing by going to physical therapy. And I was doing a single leg exercise. I was standing on my bad leg, which was getting pretty recovered, and doing like a clamshell opening on my right leg. And I heard a very loud pop, and really couldn't walk. Went to the ER. They did x-rays of my bone. The bone looks fine. The femur's fine. But then the next day I basically demanded an MRI, because I'm like, I can barely walk. And I was like, really doing great. And turns out that I have a torn labrum and a sprained ligamentum teres, which I feel like I need to find a better word for that. Thank you for the super chat. Hiroshi likes the new backdrop and the sound, and is also from Munich. So,
greetings from Munich. Okay.
But so we may be looking at, according to the MRI, Houston, we've had another problem, and we may be looking at a surgery because torn labrums and, torn hip labrums do not heal themselves. I can kind of walk around, but it hurts and I'm limping very badly. It feels like my left leg is like a foot shorter than the right leg. So I'm back on crutches, and I don't see this new doctor until June 26th. That's the soonest they could get me in, which I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I need surgery. Like, you guys have given me no game plan. I went to physical therapy, the place where I should have been safe. Now I'm possibly needing another surgery. And you guys haven't even gone over the results with me. I had to call the imaging place myself and say, can you email me the results? So I'm feeling a little bit, I'm feeling a lot frustrated, actually. I'm very upset about this. And yeah, Matt says June 26th. Yeah. So I don't have any, indication of what the game plan is moving forward. My orthopedic surgeon has basically said, this is not in my realm. I'm a bone guy. You have a tear in your labrum, so I'm going to refer you to this new guy. And oh yeah, we can't get you in for, over 3 weeks. So, like we said, I may need a quite minimally invasive surgery to fix it, but I might not. I don't know. My sister, who's a radiologist, she's like, I think you're going to need a surgery, which is not great.
June 26th. Okay. So but you know what June 28th is?
Elon's birthday.
Yes.
Which
you remember that now.
Actually, there's an event next week here in Austin, and Elon is a keynote speaker. Have you heard about it?
Yes, it's some Edison Institute.
Yes, so I am going to try to get media credentials. I don't care if I'm going on crutches. I'm going to try to do that next week because I live in Austin. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, sure. Of course you have to. It's easier than going down to Corpus Christi. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that worked anyway. That still worked out, which is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, that is a long time. So I agree that see if you can find someone before then. Yeah. Now, how do we remember Elon's birthday? For everyone who can't remember that it's the 28th.
Because it's 420. No, sorry, it's 69 days after 420.
Yeah, but no one could do that math in their head. Okay, so Elon's birthday is also known as Tau Day.
Tau?
And what's Tau Day? Tau Day is I guess you can say the counterpoint to Pi Day, because there's two schools of thought out there. What is actually the actual constant we should be using for describing a circle? Because pi is considered to be the ratio of the circumference to the diameter of the circle. That's where we get 3.14. Tau is the ratio of the radius to the circumference, and you get like 6.28 . And a lot of purists out there say that we define circles by the radius, not by the diameter. Therefore, we should use this constant tau. So there is a Pi Day, which we all know is March 14th. Well, the counterpoint to that is Tau Day, which is 6/28 as opposed to 3/14. So now you will never forget when it's Elon's birthday. So it's amazing. When I found out, I was like, his birthday is that day as well as the 69 days after 420.
I was going to say it's also, well, and I want to bring up that because today I surpassed 69,420 subscribers on Ellie in Space.
Right. Yeah, so, I saw that and was wondering, did you Photoshop that? And I was thinking,
how do I celebrate?
Unsubscribing and then going back out in there and say, I was the one that put her over the top.
Oh man, how do I celebrate? What could I possibly do?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now there was the insulation is a problem. They have to tear that out and probably redo it on the wires.
Yes. Oh, we're going back to Starliner.
They have to beef something up on the parachute cords to get that to work. Now, I heard somewhere else, and I don't know, maybe someone in the comments can confirm it, that they may also still be having some problem with the valves, the sticky valves in the, I think in the RCS or the escape system, the launch escape system. That somewhere was buried in there, or part of the press conference, something came up, because remember that was the one that originally scrubbed it about a year ago. that they found that these valves would not open. They were getting stuck. And that may have still been a problem. So don't want to spread any rumors, but I had read it from a couple of sources. So I was surprised that was not something that Angry talked about today.
So
there seems to be so many problems.
A ton of problems. And my question to you is it time to just, I mean, they're so far behind. It's time to just call it.
Yeah. They're way behind. And again, I kind of snarked about the whole thing is that, we really don't care that it can land on land. All we care about is whether it can go into orbit, because that was one of the big things that Boeing was throwing shade on SpaceX, because they were able to land on land, and SpaceX still hasn't. I mean, they had like one of these promo things out there. And it's it's not about landing on about I think almost 3 years ago, when they were trying to compare the two. They had something out there. There was some video, and I just remember that they were so proud of the fact they could land on the land. And like, okay, so you can land on land, but that's not the point. The point is, can you put humans into space? And you can do it safely, and can you do it reliably, and can you do it often? That's all we care about. We really don't care if you land in the ocean. And once you've mastered that, if you can then figure out the trick of landing on land, great. But in some ways, they may have been engineering the wrong part of the whole system. The other thing comes down to is that you would think, Boeing being this large company with this huge legacy and history of making, great airliners and being in aerospace and all that they should be able to do it because they've been around a long time. And that is a fallacy, because first, I don't think Boeing ever designed a capsule that went into space. Yes, they've designed aircraft, so they should know something about building a cockpit, but not necessarily when it goes into space. And they built a lot of components that went in the rockets, and they managed the whole thing. So I think they were in charge of like maybe the entire Saturn V, but it was North American that did the Apollo capsule. And then I think, the same with McDonnell Douglas, so McDonnell Douglas is now part of Boeing, so maybe that's where it comes from. McDonnell Douglas was the Gemini capsule, and maybe also the Mercury. And then Rockwell was the shuttle. So Boeing never really had to make a capsule before, and now they have the first time. Well, let's imagine they did. So what if they were involved in the Apollo project? Those engineers are long gone, and the institutional memory gets lost if you aren't constantly doing it. So it's basically a new crop of engineers that are trying to solve a problem that company had never solved before, even if they had. And I think that's part of the problem, is everyone assumed they were the ones that are going to pull it off, and not this upstart company, SpaceX. And I'm sorry, they all are starting from the same blank piece of paper and the same, let's say, lack of experience. And the only experience is what they get from talking to some of the veterans that had done it, that aren't necessarily in the organization, that are maybe outside the organization. And it's very important to maintain that institutional continuity. I remember when I was an intern at General Dynamics, there were a bunch of engineers that were going to the Cape in 1980 to do a dress rehearsal of a launch of the shuttle. Now, the shuttle hadn't launched yet at all. It wasn't going to be until I think 81 or so before the first one went up there. And they had been doing a lot of these dress rehearsals. And the reason why they were doing it is they were well aware that they had not launched a man into space since like 1976. And they were afraid they were going to start losing that edge of what it meant. So they were going through to make sure that those who were still on the Apollo program and the Gemini program could do the baton exchange to the next generation. They kept that going because of the big concern of like, oh, we're going this new program, and if all the veterans retire, we're going to be in trouble. So this is kind of, the problem when you have these huge gaps. And a lot of the reasons that certain programs were kept alive after Apollo was to make sure that American engineering didn't lose its edge.
Well, and look at this comment from Sethia. What good is being able to land on land if everyone was dead from spinning out of control, torn parachutes, and internal fires?
Yeah, exactly. So, yep. Well, you could get to auger in a place for them to build a memorial. That's about it. So, there's all sorts of issues that need to be taken care of. Apparently,
people like the sheriff look.
Okay. I have to ask you, who's the moderator that's allowing those comments in there?
I don't have a mod anymore. Actually.
Oh, you're just doing it. Okay.
My mod actually kind of quit on me, and I feel really bad about it. Yeah, I don't even know if I should get into that. So a lot of people send me messages every single day, and he was upset that I hadn't answered a message. And I'm like, but I get messages every single day on multiple different platforms, and I'm one person. And so he just like left. So if anyone wants to be a mod, let me know. Yeah. No moderator right now. So be nice in the comments. Someone likes the lighted Tesla sign. Exciting news about Tesla, by the way. Apparently, with the Model 3s, you can now get that $7,500 credit if you get the all-wheel drive versus just the rear-wheel drive.
Okay.
Right? They changed
That's
it.
great.
So
Right, and maybe you should move to Colorado before you do it because evidently they have like another $5,000 on top of that.
is it?
But
I mean,
yes,
that's still pretty great for here.
that is crazy. Yeah. So not that
Yeah.
you need to move again. Well, Gary's out there. You can do the
Oh,
physical
I'm not
therapy with him.
moving.
So
I love Texas. I'm not moving. Mitch, you want to
Yep.
be a mod? How do I make you a mod? I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, but I would love to make you a mod.
Okay. Yeah. So
I appreciate that.
yeah. Now, I guess the other news, I mean, SpaceX news is the launch that you were going to see today that was supposed to go off. And do you remember at what time the launch was supposed to go off? Classic
It was
time.
actually, for all of the launches that you and I have tried to go to, it was at a great time. It was at like 12:30 in the afternoon. It was supposed to go.
Even better. 12:34. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. So a
Yeah.
reasonable time, like lunchtime versus, 3 in the morning or something. I was very much looking forward to that. But it got, and let me pull up the email. So
Yeah.
I got NASA press credentials. That's why I was going to fly to Florida to cover this commercial resupply mission, which again, it's not a crewed launch. It's nothing too exciting, but it is.
No,
still,
she said crude, not crude.
yeah, it's no
Okay,
crew on board.
Uncrewed, not a
I got this
crude launch.
email
Yeah.
yesterday. SpaceX CRS-28 shelter-in-place instructions. All media, including those with facilities, will be required to shelter in the main press site building in the unlikely event of an anomaly during Saturday's launch. So I was like, okay, I don't know why they're sending
What,
that.
an anomaly, or were they talking about weather? Because I think there were some concerns with the weather.
So it sounds like it was weather related. It says, due to the unusual dispersion pattern caused by current weather forecast, only blank blank are approved shelter facilities. And then today I got the email saying that the launch had slipped to Sunday. So their press site is closed today and it slipped to tomorrow.
Sunday could be interesting because there was a SpaceX or Starlink launch that was supposed to be June 1st.
Right.
In the morning, early June 1st. So they're going to start the month off with a bang. And it didn't happen. I was looking, it's like, where's the stream for that? And then finally it slipped to Sunday. So they already pushed that to Sunday morning, I think at 5:58 or something like that, almost 6 a.m.
Okay.
So it's an early morning one. So it should still be dark enough to be able to see from far away. And then the other is now in the afternoon. So maybe, I mean, there have been, I think, maybe almost 4 times where they've had 2 launches scheduled on the same day, and it's never happened. One of them's always been pushed off. So I'm like crossing my fingers. I wonder if it's finally going to work tomorrow. I think the last time they pushed it off, it was like at the same time that they had the Axiom launch. So it's a crude launch. And they probably were like, no, we don't like having 2 rockets so close together, ready to go when there are people involved. So it may have been that's why that one then moved to like, I think 24 or 48 hours later. But maybe.
And I want to pause and thank Ricker. Mm-hmm. Ricker says, Ellie, you're a beautiful gal and the best interviewer and broadcaster. Thank you. That is very nice to hear. Recommend, yes, do Florida for R&R, but do terminal car between gates, wheelchair and Tesla friend driver in Florida. Do NASA Vibration Lab if possible. I'll definitely make it back to Florida. I was going to get a tour of an exolith lab with a planetary scientist, Dr. Phil Metzger. He's pretty well known on Twitter. I'm still going to be interviewing him Monday at the time that I was planning to interview him on person. So if you want to come talk to Phil Metzger, join us on Monday. But I still will be doing that tour of this exolith lab, which I think sounds fascinating. But it'll just have to wait. But have you heard of
Yep.
that there in Florida, Scott?
I know there's a lot of labs, and I've been trying to get into some of them as well.
You know who Phil Metzger is?
I've heard of him, yes, and I
Okay.
think I've probably read several of his tweets. Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. 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 So I'm excited to still do a live stream. Obviously, plans change, but the show must go on. But this was. Let me just try and read you a little bit more information about the Exolith Lab. And this, of course, is in Central Florida. So I will be back to Florida as soon as I can be, but it just, even on crutches, like the plane ride wouldn't have been so much of an issue, but I didn't really want to have to.
Yeah, right now you have to see what it's going to be like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you know when you're getting a little bit of healing.
Here's the thing. I went to the Starship launch on crutches because it's Starship. Like, I wasn't going to miss that for the world. So this Exolith Lab has lunar simulants, Martian simulants. It's committed to cultivating a sustainable future in space exploration, dedicated to providing the tools necessary to further the expansion of the field. They are providing.
Where exactly is it?
It's at UCF, I think.
Is it in Lake Nona?
Let me look. They're providing high fidelity analogs to researchers and educators globally. So I was going to go tour this, and I'm trying to find where exactly it is. I think it's at UCF.
Which it might be something at, because they have a campus, I think, in Lake Nona.
Lab address. Let's see. Like how I don't even know the address, so let's just kind of figure it out. Yeah, it's in Oviedo, Florida.
Oviedo, okay. So it's
in the Orlando area.
It's Orlando area. Okay, it's more northeast. Yeah. Okay. It's not too far away.
Steve says, thank you for the super chat. Ellie, do more stuff with the angry astronaut. I am trying to put together a live stream with him.
I'm not angry enough.
He is potentially going to join me for a live stream tomorrow. Help me pester him about it. I've texted him a few times. He said that he would be willing to do it, but we still haven't firmed up a time. So now I'm angry. I'm the angry one. Right. But of course, I want to talk to him about, Starliner, because he's kind of an expert there. Look at this.
Yes. So yeah, he made the right call on Starliner years ago. You just see there was all kinds of problems with the program, and we were all hoping that he was wrong. But I think, it's almost time for that program to go down. So so we had almost a launch today that should go off tomorrow.
Yes.
And if anyone is in the Cape area or thinking of going to the Cape area, the question is always, where's the best place to watch a launch?
Yeah.
We want to talk about that?
I would say the NASA press site.
Yes, but not everyone can get the NASA press site.
Of course.
And when they have a launch, it's difficult to get onto Merritt Island or into the Kennedy Space Center unless you have purchased a ticket. And there's a couple sets of tickets. There's one at the Visitor Center, and I think you have to pay maybe an additional $75 on top of the entry fee or something like that. And you watch it from some bleachers. And I don't recommend it, because if you actually sit out in those bleachers, you will be looking at palm trees, and then you'll be looking for where are the actual launch pads, and you can't see them.
Right.
So you won't see the rocket until it gets above. So it's like, why are you paying extra? You're a little bit closer. You might be 6 to 8 miles from some of those pads. So you'll hear the roar a bit louder, a bit sooner. The rocket will be a little bit bigger once it gets above the tree line, and you might smell the kerosene afterwards. The other is you do what we did, and that was the field of heat, and that's out by the Saturn V Center, and you have a direct view of those pads. Now, of course, Kennedy it's really long. Cape Canaveral, you've got the pretty much the NASA side, which is to the north, and then you've got the defense side, which is Space Force to the south. So you get that whole coast, and depending upon which pad they're going off, you may or may not get a good view from there. But for the field of heat, from the Saturn V, for Artemis, for the Falcon Heavy, it's as close as you can get.
It is. Just make sure it's not foggy.
Yes. So don't go on a morning launch in November, because even though they say it'll burn off in Florida, November, it's not quite warm enough. It's like, it'll burn off in July.
Right.
By 8 a.m., but it'll wait till 10 or 11
Yeah.
And so we found out the hard way. So,
I
so
want to
anything that's to, mhm.
I
Go
want
ahead.
to take a moment. We have a couple questions here. Brian,
Sure.
first of all, I have to shout out his wife, Cheryl, because we need more female viewers on the channel. I have 93% male demographic on the channel. So thank you, Cheryl, for watching my content. I appreciate that. Steve wants to know, Ellie, can you address UFOs and extraterrestrial stuff for us, please? So I do have an interview with Avi Loeb. He is a Harvard astronomer who's doing the Galileo project. That's a little bit older interview now, but yeah, there's definitely room to talk about UFOs. I'm not sure how much interest there is in that. And then we do have a question here from Eddie. What happened with the Jonathan McDowell live stream? That will be rescheduled. So that was supposed to be Wednesday. Jonathan hopped on the call like 5 minutes before we were supposed to do the live stream, and he was like, "Hey, Ellie, you know, I told CNN that they had to wait because I had a more important live stream." And I'm sitting here crying, and I had just gotten a call from my doctor saying, "Hey, come down and do the MRI." So that is why it was canceled. Of course, he was very understanding, and I plan to do a follow-up or a redo of that because I did not want to cancel
Oh,
it.
okay. So why did CNN want him? Was it something to do with the
So
Korean launch?
CNN wanted to talk to him about UFO stuff, and he actually
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
I thought it might have been the North Korean satellite launch that
no, it
failed.
was about UFO stuff. So maybe I should do some coverage
Oh,
of
okay.
that.
Okay.
Here's a
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
for you, Scott. Does FUD
Yeah.
after your name mean fear, uncertainty, and doubt?
It's okay. It's a joke that I put up there because I have a PhD, and when I was a graduate student, we never called it a PhD. We pronounced it because PH could be pronounced like a f, and then so you just went FUD.
Mm,
So everyone was working on their FUD. And so
gotcha.
I've always had that behind, and I just said, sometimes let's have some fun with it. And so I'm showing you, it's a PhD, but it's pronounced FUD, not PhD. And part of it is to be aware. I mean, take it from a PhD, be wary of people with PhDs. We may be subject area matter experts in certain areas, and even then, we may not have the most expertise. So just because it's there, doubt us, question us, everything else. And that's why I want to make light of it, is
Gotcha.
that I definitely see some people out there that have it, that are talking on topics that they shouldn't be talking about. And you can clearly see, that's BS. And I have one of those as well. Okay, so I've got both the BS and the piled higher and deeper, as I like to say. So never take yourself too seriously in life or
You
anyone
can't.
else. So that's the best
You
way to go
can't.
through it.
No one gets out alive. We have
Yeah.
a familiar face in the room. Joe Tagmeyer. Hi, Ellie. Sorry to hear about your next surgery. Potential, but high potential. Glad you're able to
Okay.
keep up with live
So Joe will
stream.
be visiting you in the hospital again. Unfortunately, let's
No.
hope not.
Yes, the opportunity my leg is presenting. So I actually put up a video on Twitter because I'm like, you know what? This is frustrating. I'm depressed about it. I'm mad about it, but I'm going to take this time that I'm laid up again to do more live streaming. I'm obviously working on the set, trying to make it look better in here. And so I'm trying to, use it as an opportunity to at least grow the channel and focus more on this so that I don't focus on the fact that I want to be climbing mountains and cannot right now. So
Right.
we have to
Yeah.
turn it into something positive, and that
Mhm.
is
Now, just getting back to like the best viewing points to watch the different views is that a week or so ago, I was out in Lake Nona with John Gibbs, also known as Dr. Know-It-All, and Glenn Cook, who runs kind of that experimental lab around there. And we get to go for a ride in Lucid, which was rather interesting. I think eventually John will be able to show a video on that.
okay.
And we then went out to a launch, which was scrubbed at the last, at the end of the range. I mean, they kept on pushing it back. And then when they finally were outside the window, that was it. And I found a new viewing location in Titusville, which is also worth mentioning. So we know about the Max Brewer Bridge. And if anything is SpaceX related or Artemis related, go to Titusville.
Yes.
Anything that might be ULA or relativity, you might go down to Jetty Park. You're going to be closer down on that side. If there is a return to site from SpaceX, then you might want to see it from Jetty Park because you can see the return from there, but you can't see the launch that well. You'll see it when it gets up above, but you won't see it that closely. So if you're really there to see the launch for SpaceX, you want to go up to Titusville. And there's the Max Brewer Bridge, which is really nice because it's nice and tall. There's parking close by. There's facilities nearby. And depending upon whether it's early evening, there's a restaurant you can go to. If it's late in the morning, you can still watch it from there. Beautiful site. But also in Titusville is a place called Astronaut Memorial Park. And there's a little wharf that goes out. And you can also see it. So it's very close to the bridge, but it's also another nice site to be able to set it up and look from there. And I think there's a few others. There's like Kennedy Point Park and a few others as you go down from there to where the causeway is. So there's a lot.
Well,
now, the other spot, which is the one I have just been dying to get to, you can only do during the daytime.
Okay.
And we've been there. We just didn't see a launch.
Was it that beach that we walked down?
Playa Linda, yes.
Playa
yes.
Linda, okay.
And that is an iconic beach. If you look at some of the old pictures from Life magazine of the Gemini program, you always see like this beach with all the sunbathers out there and a Gemini going on up. And I was like, where is that? Where is that? That's Playa Linda Beach. And it's part of the National Seashore. And if you go to Titusville, to that bridge we're talking about, and you just keep driving straight, eventually you're going to come to a gate in which you just need to have a National Parks Pass to get in or just pay the entry fee. But it's a dawn to dusk kind of situation. So if it's a launch in the middle of the day, like 12:34, it's like perfect.
Right.
You can drive on out there, and then you have to park, and then we have to donate our sandals to Neptune.
I was going to say,
a mile along the beach. That's where you lost your sandals. Yeah.
I had just bought new sandals, and I took them off, and we went on quite a long walk to the end of the beach,
to as far as you could go, and then it's like very clear you can't
came
pass
back,
here.
And they were gone. And I'm thinking, did someone say, I mean, they were new sandals. So maybe someone stole them. Maybe they have a foot fetish.
It was high tide.
The beach stole them.
I think the waves kind of took it. And it was a little bit windy too. So I think it was just enough to kind of maybe get out there and caught. But that is an iconic place to see daytime. And that is probably also as close as you're going to be able to get, because out at Max Brewer Bridge, you're about 11 miles away. But there, I think you might be 3 to 4 miles, maybe even closer. Because remember, we were there, Artemis seemed like we could almost reach out and touch it from there. We were looking around, like, are we allowed to be this close? We were just waiting for someone to come and tell us, hey, get out of here. You're not supposed to be there. So,
and I want to thank you guys for super chatting. Steve says 95% male viewers. That's really weird. I wonder why. Just to put it out there, Marcus House has about the same viewer demographic. So I think it's just there's not a lot of girls interested in space.
Anna would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Our friend Anna, she is quite the rocket nerd.
Okay. Well, how do we get more females on my channel? Or does it matter?
Does it matter? Well, you know what? That's a good question. I'm going to pose it to her. And then when she gets a chance, I think she just finished her finals. I think she's over in Portugal and should be back maybe almost now. And then she's going out to the national labs in Idaho this summer because she wants to build nuclear powered rockets someday.
Wow.
So last year she was at Los Alamos for her summer internship, and now she's out at the national lab in Idaho. And we're going to have to pull her in the live stream and say, all right, there's a problem with your demographic. Get them in here. We want more girls.
My question is it really a problem? Is it really a problem, at least for my channel? If it's 93%, 95% male viewers, as long as people are watching, is it really a problem?
No, it's not like we're trying to reduce the number of men. We're just trying to increase the number of women. Okay, let's look at it that way. All right. That's all.
The other interesting tidbit is that over 50% of my viewership is age like 50 and up.
Because we were all children of Apollo.
Yes. And
because there has been like this long drought of absolutely nothing, and that we all wanted to walk on the moon. We grew up with that. And then the generation that kind of followed us didn't have that. So they haven't had quite the same passion. And now it's kind of coming back. So I think what you're seeing is that a younger generation is like really excited in space, and the older generation is really excited in space. And there's like ones in the middle that like, That's I call those the shuttle generation, because the shuttle was pretty boring. I mean, it didn't really excite anyone. But when you start seeing rockets landing and you get this guy with this crazy idea of like, occupy Mars, we're going to send stuff out to Mars, it starts getting the imagination going. And the excitement I see from a lot of people that are getting their education right now, thinking of that, hey, maybe being a rocket scientist is actually a career. Because in my day, it was just kind of running out. It's like, yeah, great, you get that degree, but what's it good for? No one's going to hire you.
Yeah. And you are a rocket scientist, correct? Like, tell us more about your degree or degrees.
So I have a Master of Engineering in aerospace. So that was what I always wanted to be. Is I wanted to be an astronaut. Probably when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So I built all the rockets, collected all the Life magazines, studied those things. I could memorize, could tell you the names of all the astronauts at that point. And, I knew the ISPs of every single rocket engine at that point and what the payload capabilities, because it was just one of those things you did as a kid. And so, all right, what do you got to do to become one? It's like, well, you got to be an engineer. A lot of them, had like degrees in engineering, and there were very few programs that were actually aerospace degrees. And the degree, the only way you get an aerospace degree is usually a 5-year degree. So you get a 4-year degree in mechanical engineering, and then your 5th year, you go ahead and get that, and they call it a master's degree. So I did that, did an internship for General Dynamics Convair, worked on some stuff I can't talk about, and then came back and then got sucked into computer graphics, because basically I can, what I can talk about that I did in my summer internship was very easy. Is that I had to run very simple simulations of performance of rocket engines on a Texas Instrument calculator, take the results of those things and plot them on a piece of paper. So that's what interns do. They do the grunt work, because the guys that have been there for a few years don't want to do it. So I had to go through and basically keep on putting these numbers in, because they had the equations that were simulating the performance, put it down on a piece of graph paper and put it on up there. But right around that time, they were just starting to get some programmable, they were called desktop calculators. I don't know why. I mean, they were big, but basically they were like a PC. There were these HP 9845C. See, I can remember that, like from 1980. I can still remember the model number of that thing. And we were able to take that and connect it to a plotter. And at that time, the plotters literally had a pen, and they had an arm that moved back and forth like this and could draw stuff. So we got it in there, and eventually I figured out how to get that thing to draw those plots. And that was my introduction to computer graphics. And then when I went back to school at Cornell, I got sucked into that more and more. And what are you going to do with it? And then we were simulating mechanical systems. And then that's right when robotics was starting to kind of come up as like being something that everyone was suddenly interested in around 83, 84. And then I started saying, this looks kind of interesting. The next thing I know, whoop, simulation company to do offline programming for robots, and went off in a different direction. And then when we got like some calls from NASA, it's like, oh, can you help us do some simulations of shuttle payloads? And it's like, yeah, we'll be there.
And can you pull up your Tesla bot simulation?
Yeah. So you want me to?
Why not?
Focus, yeah, whatever.
And I'm gonna do another pan of my spacesuit. Let me find a song.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We got to keep this interesting. I don't know if this is the right song. Hold on. Let's see if I can.
All right.
Is this a good song?
Oh, there we go. Hopefully no copyright issues, but we'll try it.
Kind of cool. So the patches are alien and spaced out. Yeah. I don't have enough room. Anyway. I was thinking, man, this would be a great Halloween costume. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pull a Tim Dodd and wear it in a live stream, because why not?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
hot. This spacesuit is so hot.
Okay, Ellie, just wait for the comments that are now going to come in.
No, I'm serious. It's like I'm sweating.
Everyone's going to agree. Yeah, it's hot.
I'm sweating in here. But
So you need to make it like a real spacesuit, and you need to get air conditioning in there somehow.
Yeah. But I don't want to wear a helmet with it. I like the hat. So I was thinking, actually, you know what, Scott? let's talk about this right now.
Mhm.
Let's talk about this right now. So everyone wants to interview Elon Musk, including
Right.
me. However,
Yes.
I would like to interview Jeff Bezos about Blue Origin. I know a lot of people are not Blue Origin fans, but the guy like never does interviews. I'm now a space cowgirl. He's a space
Mhm.
cowboy.
There you
I'm
go.
hoping that we can make the pitch.
Okay.
What do you
And
think?
that would be nice. So the thing is, yeah, make the pitch. The thing is, you've got to somehow try to get in contact with him.
Hmm. Yes.
Are his DMs open for you?
Not for me.
Anyone you know?
Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
Okay. Okay. So, truth be told, something weird happened about a month ago.
For me too. Mine was a month ago too. How weird is it that we both are in similar circumstances?
Yeah, maybe it was a month, or yeah, it might be about a month ago.
Mine
So
was a month.
it was after the Starship launch, and
Same.
I saw my Twitter notifications, and this thing came up that something like Jeff Bezos is following you, and I just laughed like, ah, yeah, right, but it was one of those bots that actually that searches famous people to inform you that if you're not aware this person's there. And look, they're really close. This cannot be him. It's got to be spam of some sort or a bot.
Yeah.
And I kept on checking, and it's like, kind of looks like him, but I really don't think it is. And of course, you go to his page and you see he's got 218 followers. So you remember that number too.
Or he's
That
following 218 people. He has
I think
over
it's like
6 million.
yes. And so it's like, well, that's a pretty good bot if it's got like 14 million followers. That it's persuading enough people to do that, but it's only following 218. It's not like it's higher, it's like 222 or 224. So it's not like but there, which means every time I check into a hotel, it's like, which one would you prefer? I'll take 218. It's as simple as that.
He's following you and Elon's
And
following me.
yeah, that's weird. And he's following, both of them are following Corey. So like Corey is one of the few people that both of them
Steuben
follow.
with
So,
Monroe,
right,
Sandy Monroe's team, if you don't know who Corey is.
And I think, I don't know, based on that, it might be that Jeff Bezos decided to like follow me to make sure Elon never would. So he's like, oh, I'm gonna make sure. So he's gone ahead and done that. Or I just think it was like a butt follow. I mean, I just cannot believe, because I can't figure out why all of a sudden it's like, does he really like my snark? And if he looked really deep in some of my tweet threads, I've thrown some shade over Blue Origin's way a few times. But okay, I put something out there, and all I can think of is I did an Excel spreadsheet plot of the acceleration profile of the Starship. It was like kind of a nerdy thing to do, because I went through like frame by frame, looking at the speed and then doing some math to kind of figure this thing out. And like all the rocket nerds loved it. And I guess, well, he's in that camp. So there you have it. And but at this point, I've been frozen. I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, what's the first thing you do? And I'm sitting there, like, oh, you follow him back. Okay, that's the first thing you do. Next thing, what do you do? I don't know.
Wait, he followed you before you followed him?
Yeah, he followed me before I followed him. I also parsimonious when it comes to my followers. I try to get a bit more, but otherwise your feed gets so cluttered. And you're just like, I can't read all this stuff. So I was like really trying to make sure it's not that. And, a lot of times I end up seeing people because they follow and eventually I'll go ahead and do that. But there's some cases that some people, you just get inundated and it's like, oh, I don't want to unfollow them and I don't want to block them. So you end up having to mute them a little bit because they just, it's too much stuff coming on over. And, and the thing is, it doesn't matter whether you follow Jeff Bezos. He tweets like once every 2 months. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I think the last one we talk about I think it was with John. Yeah, because he put out the tweet when they won the HLS contract. They now have a human space lander. Do you want to talk about that? We haven't even talked about that. So now I think about it. I talked about it with John.
I haven't made a video about it either, and I feel like a little bit behind on that. So yes.
Okay, so the thing that's interesting about it. And I've got PowerPoints. If you want me to, I can go through and dig up the old PowerPoints.
You want to do it right now?
Reminders of it.
Yeah,
I mean, why don't we do it? I mean, we're looking for subject matter. I mean, it's either that or looking at like an Optimus robot running around with other robots.
Let's do it. For some reason, Dirk says, don't look into the camera. Scott, does it look better when I look into my camera or at the screen? Into my camera or
Okay,
at
you're
the
looking into
screen?
the camera.
This
I
my
think it's
camera.
okay when I think it looks like when you're looking. See, I don't know what I'm. Am I looking into the camera because I'm too used to looking at the screen?
I'm
But
looking.
you're the professional, and you know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look into the camera.
Does it look okay to you? Because this is me
It
looking
looks
into
great.
the camera.
It looks to
Okay.
me like you are talking to me.
Okay.
Okay. And now, right now, does it look like I'm talking to you, or does it look like I'm looking at you?
You're looking at the screen.
I'm looking at the screen. So to me, it's like I'm. You know, I had to be better. That I had to look into that as if I'm having a conversation with you. But it's hard for me because I'm not a professional like you are that knows how to do that and has been trained on it. But it probably looks like I'm having a conversation with you now, right? Because I'm looking in your eyes indirectly.
Exactly.
So,
Mine is
yeah.
slightly above my computer, but I'm so happy because I finally have hooked up my Sony ZV-1 instead of just relying on my built-in webcam on the computer, and it looks so much better. I'm very proud of myself for making these upgrades that I should have made 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what? Better late than never. So yeah, pull up that PowerPoint. And oh my gosh, these comments are too much. Look at the camera so we can pretend to have a girlfriend.
See, there we go. Okay. Yep.
So
yes. So
okay.
So listen.
I'm getting great feedback on the cowgirl hat, by the way. I'm very
You're
happy.
gonna have to do. We're gonna have to find some way to make it so you're not so. Because is that like a Teflon suit almost? So it's not breathable fabric at all.
It's like a reflective material. It actually, in person, it looks very gray, like dark gray. But on the screen here, it looks like metallic reflective.
It looks like almost like day glow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
day glow gray, if there is such a thing. But yeah,
hot.
you're probably getting no ventilation. Yeah, have to rig something up to, throw some ice cubes down there or something like that, or get something to keep you a little bit cooler. Because man, your arms, it must be terrible because you're getting absolutely no airflow through there.
Oh, it's terrible. Someone made the joke, OnlyFans boyfriend experience incoming. I got to tell you, I've been wanting to hold like a Twitter space or a live stream about this topic because I've had so many people suggest that I start an OnlyFans, and I feel like it would just shoot myself in the foot. Totally.
And the last thing you need is shooting yourself in the foot, given all the other leg problems you've been having.
Do you think that this is a worthy discussion of having? I find it interesting because let me tell you, as a woman, I hear that there are, all these personalities on OnlyFans making so much money. They don't even know what to do with it. Guys will say stuff like, if I were a chick, I would do an OnlyFans in a heartbeat. And then it's like, but would you really? Like, there's a cost with that easy money. And so I just think it's interesting that more and more people are doing this. And, people suggest this and I guess either don't understand why I think it's, a controversial topic. Maybe this is not in your wheelhouse.
And like you do that, and it's like, whoop, there goes your NASA press pass. It's
that's the thing. It's like, I'm not on YouTube making prank videos, which I would never do anyway, but it's not like I'm in a niche that it's like, oh, if she wants to do an OnlyFans, whatever. And some people apparently do OnlyFans and they just do kind of like PG-13 content. So maybe it's them, in a bathing suit or whatever, something a little more
dressed up as a French maid doing the dusting. Okay,
right. And so, but I feel like if you have an OnlyFans, you are almost like guilty by default. Like society will judge you no matter what's on the other side of that paywall, even if it's like not that, revealing or anything. And so I just think it's a really interesting topic that I am bombarded with every single day. That's why I'm bringing it up, because people ask about this every day. And it's just
you have Twitter subscription, right?
Yeah, I do. And Elon's a subscriber.
That's like an OnlyFans. I mean, you got to be a fan to see that content. So there you go. There's your OnlyFans.
But I'm not posting like
I know. But what I'm saying is that like there's stuff that you have to pay for to see, and it's just like whatever your takes are in space flight. So you just do it that way.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah,
So
I like the
I think we
comments.
covered that topic. Okay, so
You're like, I don't want to touch
more
the-
questions.
the
Change
template.
topic quickly.
I think that I just like made you flustered. Hey, I just bring it up because it's like it's crazy how often it gets brought up. It's like, man.
Okay,
Are people asking
I'll show.
you to make an OnlyFans, Scott?
What, me? Yeah, right.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, have
sorry,
only one
guys.
fan. Yeah, that's probably it. So
Maybe it's Jeff. Sorry that we went off topic on that, but it's something that, I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up, and we're live and it doesn't matter what we talk about. So
okay, so I'm going to try to see if I can get an entire screen over here. Okay, so that should be my little screen there, if you want to show it. That has to do with the Blue Origin human landing system for the moon. Do you see that? I assume I'm
yes,
sharing
let me
it.
add it. Let me add it.
You just got to put it up. Okay,
Yes.
so this is the tweet that Jeff Bezos put out.
Okay, honored to be on this journey with NASA to land astronauts on the moon, this time to stay. Together we'll be solving the boil-off problem and making liquid oxygen, LH2? What's LH2?
Liquid hydrogen. Yep.
Liquid hydrogen, a storable propellant combination, pushing forward the state-of-the-art for all deep space missions.
Yes, and that's very interesting. So when I saw that tweet, I think this was when I was with Julian giving him the tour of KSC a few weeks ago. And then he saw that. It's like, oh, they've got this, they won that. And so I thought, oh, there's going to be more information. So I followed it. And this is about all the information there is right here. Even Scott Manley tried to do a video on it. And he had to go into Kerbal and do a lot of other things because this tweet actually told us a little bit more, because about all we saw from NASA was this image. And Jeff added in the fact that there is the boil-off problem, and it's going to be, LOX H2O. And evidently there's a few other little tidbits that came in along there. But so what can you make from a picture? John and I can make a lot from a picture, as you know. and so we're kind of looking at it. And so let's kind of contrast this a little bit. If we go back, I think, was it 2 or 3 years? This was the original competition. This is the one the SpaceX ended up winning. Of course, there's some variations on it. And this was the original national team. And do you remember how this thing was kind of configured, the way it was supposed to work?
I did not pay as much attention to that one.
Okay. So what you have is very much like the Apollo lunar module system, where you have an ascent stage up here and a descent stage down here. So this is not fully reusable. This is going to stay down. This is what brings you down to the surface. And then you have an ascent stage up. Whoops, I don't know. That always happens with my mouse. Then you have the ascent stage up here, the propellant down there, and the crew quarter up there. And then probably way up here at the top is where it's able to dock with the lunar gateway. And a lot of criticism, and a lot of this came from Angry Astronaut. He didn't like it at all because you see hidden in the back is this ladder that goes way down to the surface.
Right.
There's like almost like a 9-meter drop down there.
That's crazy.
Now, of course, it's even crazier with SpaceX, but at least they have an elevator. So they felt that this was safer than going down there. And everyone loved the Dynetics because there's a couple of steps and you were down.
Yeah.
And they had everything kind of side slung and it was reusable. But neither of them won it because they were way over budget, and SpaceX is the only one that's even close. So they've come up with the second system. And if we compare the second one here, you can see there is no ascent and descent stage. You might be looking at this and say, well, first, notice the crew quarters is down at the bottom now. It's not even at the top.
Okay.
And look here, if you look back there, this is not a ladder. These are steps coming down.
Right.
There's a little porch to come out. So it's much easier and much safer to come down. And we know it's not methyl LOX and it's not kerosene, it's not hypergolics, because Jeff said it's liquid hydrogen and oxygen. And from that we can tell, because usually when you look at the two, hydrogen and oxygen, the hydrogen tank is much bigger. So remember when I gave you the tour of the Saturn V, I sort of showed you, it's like, this much was oxygen, whoop, that much is hydrogen. Right. So usually that's what ends up happening. So this is the oxygen tank here, and that's the hydrogen tank there. And it's being used for both the descent and the ascent later on. And now what's weird about this is all the stuff that's kind of missing that we can't see. So what we can't see are the actual engines. We have no idea where the engines are. You're looking down here and thinking, where are the engines? You know, is this the engine bell itself? I mean, what is that? Is that an aerospike or what? And you try to do some close-ups and you can't see stuff. The other thing that's missing are the RCS thrusters.
Oop, you're cutting out a little bit.
So a white blue origin tweet 2 months ago where they have come up with gaseous hydrogen oxygen RCS thrusters. And that's really kind of that's mean.
Do you see? Hold on. Do you see the super chat?
Yeah, I saw that.
If Scott goes on OnlyFans, Diane Feinstein would be his only follower. Why?
Oh man, it's like you're being really mean to her. Do you realize? You know. Don't worry, I could take the jokes. You know, throw them my way. Some of the jokes I've done at Ellie's expense. I deserve a few my way. So, okay, so what it looks like is they're not going to be using hypergolics or anything else or that you'd normally use for the RCS system. We just don't know where they are. As you're looking around here, you do these close-ups and you can see where the lighting is, but you cannot see where the thrusters are. And they're talking about the boil-off problem.
Dean says, aren't the thrusters at the top all the way around? You're saying no.
No, these things, those are the lights. These here are the antennas, and they are definitely not RCS thrusters. I mean, there's some things up here that you think might be, and when we do the close-ups of them, and I think somewhere in here we did a couple of close-ups. Well, here's the other thing that was like weird about the original system. Actually, there was 3 stages to it. There was one stage, this big engine here, or this big stage that brought it down from the lunar gateway close to the surface. It would separate, and then you had these 2 others, and everyone just said, "Why are you adding more complexity?" So they've gone to what they're going to be basically a single stage to orbit. So rather than having the 2 stages here, one stage brings you down and one stage up. And so I said, well, wait a minute, it's not even a single stage to orbit. It's a single stage to surface and to orbit. So it's like, what would be the acronym for that? So SSTSAO or something like that. So if you look up at the top, we don't see anything that look like RCS thrusters. So these are definitely the lights. Clear what that is because it's not pointing in enough directions to be an RCS. It looks like there's something up at the top that might be used for refueling. We're assuming that that's where they might dock to the refueling because the cabin egress to the gateway is probably through here. So this is where they would dock to the lunar gateway. And again, this is all like speculation on our part because we're just looking at the pictures and trying to figure out what's going on. But you look down here and you say, well, where are the rocket engines? You might think, oh, aren't these are the rocket engines right there, aren't they? Like, no, they're not. Those are covers for the landing legs because you see where the struts come in. That's just where they get covered up. So there's like an engine or 2 down there or 3, we don't know. And of course, it means those engines would come into the crew compartment. The combustion chambers will be around here somewhere. Now that's already that way in New Shepard. The New Shepard is that way. You know, everyone kind of sits around what looks like this big table. Well, that big table is actually where the engine is. And the same thing in the Apollo lunar module. A lot of it kind of encroached inside of that space. So if there's any concern, like you would never have part of your rocket engine inside the crew compartment. It's like, yes, it's already been done. Of course, it'll be walled off and everything, but it'll be there. And we've kind of joked that, well, actually, it might be a good thing. If something goes wrong, you just like open up the hatch and get your Allen wrench out and tighten up whatever it is and close it up and then push go. So maybe it's more serviceable that way. So we don't know. We haven't seen it. They haven't said exactly what it is. We only know it's going to be liquid hydrogen, and that's it. Some speculation is that I think this tank here, what shape do you think that tank is? Any guess, Ellie?
It looks like a donut.
Very good. Very good. So some people might think, which means it is actually empty in the middle, right? It's got a donut hole. And that would be great for being able to get the plumbing that's going to be coming from the upper half on through there. So it could be closed, but my suspicion is probably some type of donut in order to bring it all down. Now, these funny fins on the side, at least 2 of them might be solar arrays because they kind of indicated they might be. The others might be some kind of radiators because the only thing we know from that tweet is that they want to tackle the boil-off problem. And you know what the boil-off problem is?
No, I do not.
Okay, so we're dealing with cryogenics, which means we are taking these gases and we're making them extremely cold. And so the liquid oxygen is extremely cold, and the liquid hydrogen is even colder. I think they're not even the same temperature. So one is getting way down close to absolute zero, and when you have that, it's very easy to start getting boil off. Because you're always seeing the rocket on the pads, right? The rockets are always venting, and they're constantly trying to make up for the fact that they're losing that. So right down to the last second or last 30 seconds, they're constantly filling it because they're trying to deal with the fact that it's just evaporating away. And the problem doesn't stop when you launch. So it kind of goes away in the first stage because you're consuming it so quickly. It's like, oh, the boil off problem is mostly over. I think there's still a little bit, but let's say it's not as bad as it was. But that second stage is going along for the ride. You're not consuming anything, and it has that same problem, is that the gas is getting warmer and warmer, and you're constantly having to vent some of it so you don't get an overpressure situation. And then when you get out into space, and you're like, oh, we want to be going to Mars. And how long does it take to get to Mars again? Do you remember?
I want to say it's like a couple.
It could be from 6 to 9 months.
Yeah,
depending upon I think it's like maybe around 8 months, something like that.
But you're just talking about one way, correct?
One way. Okay. And we need to bring the fuel with us.
I feel like you would lose your mind.
Yeah, you're going to lose it. It's going to be a long mission. And the other thing is, you got to make sure that you don't have propellant boil off along the way. So as soon as you get to Mars, like, yep, we ran out halfway there because it all boiled off. So you lose. I'm trying to remember what the rate is, but it's substantial that over a long period of time. So you would have to find some sort of fuel that's very stable in the temperatures and pressures you would have out there. And something like kerosene is great because it's just a liquid. You can put it in there. It doesn't boil off. You don't have that problem. Liquid oxygen is a little bit of a problem. We can lose it. But we've been able to do it for short trips, like to the moon and back. The command module, the service module of the Apollo was hydrogen and oxygen. But they still had to be very careful about the boil off there. They were always kind of rotating it in space because when the sun was coming in, it would be heating it. And that's why everything is very reflective, to try to reflect as much off. So they probably have some sort of radiators here and some kind of refrigeration system in order to keep it cold. So they're working on that problem. And that's the reason why, Jeff said, in his thing here, in his tweet, move forward the state of the art for all deep space missions. So you'd be able to have that. So it's interesting they're working on that problem. And it's also interesting that they're using that for RCS, because I don't know how they're doing it. Because the idea of usually an RCS thruster is that there's the two versions that we're used to. One is the cold nitrogen. And I guess the best way to look at it is basically like a scuba tank. It's like you open up the scuba tank and, that kind of pushes you back. And now you put like a little expansion bell on there and you can probably get a little bit more oomph. And the thing about it is it works really well. All I have to do is open and close the valve. There's no ignition. There's no pumps or anything like that. It just works like that. And then the others, if you want to get a lot more thrust out of it, is you use the hypergolics. And these are two chemicals that when they come together, they are spontaneously combust. And so it's very easy. You don't have to worry about an ignition system, and you just spray it in as long as you need it. And then you turn the valves off and then you're okay. And you do it. And that way the RCS systems can react very, very, very quick. But you'll see with like a lot of the other rockets, it's a startup sequence we have to go through in order to get them up and going. And when you're trying to maneuver something very easily, you just can't have something that's like really on, really off kind of thing, or delay. You want it to be instantaneous. So a cold gas thruster works pretty well that way. Now they're saying using gaseous hydrogen and oxygen. So it's not in a liquid form. And maybe they're thinking, well, let's just take the boil off we have anyway. It's still going to be kind of under pressure and maybe make it like a cold gas thruster. But the fact that they're choosing both of them, it's like, why not just choose one or the other? It's just that, well, since we are losing both of them, we may as well put them to use. Or are they actually going to ignite that? And that's what I don't know, if they've got some kind of combustion going on with it, or they're just both going out cold. Now, one thing that might be nice about using that as opposed to some of these other hypergolics is that you don't have to worry about like production of soot or any kind of weird effluents that would be coming out that's going to be getting around your spacecraft and gunking everything up. So things will be happening in the windows, because hydrogen, oxygen, it's not going to be a problem. And if they do combine, you get water. So what? Maybe you'll get some freezing. You might get some ice on there. Maybe that will be a problem. But, hopefully it's not something that's going to mess with the rest of the spacecraft, because sometimes you can have that problem. And even with the ion engines, there is some concern of erosion that can happen from some of those particles come around because they're charged. These ions can come around and can start colliding into things. Okay, so anything else you didn't want to?
Right.
Oh, you know the only other thing. Anything else? This, if you stack this up, that's about how it is compared to the lunar lander. To the you get the Blue Origin, you get the New Shepard. You get
Someone
the New Shepard.
sent me this in the mail, so thank you to whoever sent me this to my UPS box. They didn't actually write who they were, but I have added this to my collection, and I appreciate it. It is cool.
That's great, great. Okay, so we got a question. What about hypergolic fuels? I'm not sure in what context. Hypergolics are like perfect for RCS, and they are used in some rockets, like the Titan that was used to put the Gemini up. That was hypergolic, and I think the orbital maneuvering system on the shuttle was that way. And the thing is that they're really nasty chemicals, which is why if you can build an RCS system without them, it makes retrieval a lot better. So hypergolics are used in the Dragon spacecraft. And if you remember, every time they come back in the return, there's a long time between when they actually hit the water from the time they bring them up and they open the hatch. Because when they open that hatch, before they open the hatch, they're going around making sure that there are no leaks in the hypergolic systems.
I just made Uncle Yukon a moderator, by the way, and I'm going to make Mitch
a
moderator as well, because apparently the comments are getting wild. And so
getting wild, huh? Okay.
Getting wild, yes. So you guys, thank you. I just made you moderators. I had to do it on my phone, but okay. Let me just send a live stream link really quickly because we might have a special guest. So
cool. That would be great.
Send you link. But who could it be? Someone who's watching right now. I'm just gonna send them the link. We'll see if they're able to hop on.
It's gonna be a surprise for me.
It'll be a surprise for you, but someone you've met before. Let's see. Okay, hold on a second here. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm back. Cool. Well, thank you for the new mods. Appreciate that. We have another super chat. Ricker, thank you. The last lander version they did showed the incredible, dangerous tall ladder, hard to descend or climb with the injured person, or if capsule ladder was on a reverse tilt incline.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Imagine if it was like this and you're trying to crawl down that thing. Yeah, it was. I remember a lot of the comments about that it was not a very good design. So they cleaned it up a little bit. And I don't know if you saw that last image I had. Basically, if you stack three of them on top of each other, they'll be as long as the Starship. So you get that idea.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Now, the other thing that's weird is we don't know. I mean, even Scott Manley was trying to guess what the diameter of this was. So that's how little information we have about this lander. Is that it's like, this is the picture, no dimensions. The assumption is it's going to fit in the New Glenn fairing. And so you have to look up the New Glenn fairing at something like 7 meters somewhere. And I'm not sure where the official source was because I ended up getting it off Wikipedia. And I was like, okay, maybe it's right, maybe it's not. I couldn't find exactly where the original, it was 16.8 meters tall. So based on that, I was able to scale everything and say, the diameter is just a little bit over 6 meters. So it's under the 7 meters that you expect. So that's all we know about it. And that it's single stage. Don't know the engines, don't know how many. You know what I should do? I should go out and find a picture of the lunar module from the Apollo era and put it next to it so you get a better idea. But we do know it's about, freedom units. What's that? 45 feet, 16 or 50 feet. Maybe it's closer to 50 feet when we go for meters to that.
I love that you took the time to make this PowerPoint. What was this just for your presentation with John or what?
Yeah. Don't worry. I didn't make it for you. No, I went through because first I was curious on what was going on, and it was nice to go in and get an idea, and then also with John to go over.
What other PowerPoints can we recycle?
I get plenty. But where's our special guest?
Here's the thing. I don't know if he's going to show up, but I invited him. Here's the thing. Scott is like a great teacher. And I was thinking, since I'm going to be trying to do more live streams, it might be fun just to go through some like rocket science, 101 with you, and break things down and talk about, just do some education. I don't know if you guys.
What's the big question everyone has? Because you've done a video, and then John and I sort of like did the real long, because John and I are a long form. The ISP, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were able to do it concisely in 60 seconds. And of course, John and I had to turn into 60 minutes of talking about what that is. So if that's something that anyone in the audience is like, oh, we hear this, what is it?
It was probably worth way more than a minute of explanation, but that was just the YouTube short requirement. It can't be longer than 60 seconds.
Yes. But it drove the point home. And it wasn't bad doing that, because it sort of forced me to take my really long answers and then get them down to something that people can absorb and remember.
Right. By the way, if you notice the camera quality switch, it's because for some reason I have my Sony ZV-1. It was plugged into the computer and the battery was still exhausted. So it shut off even though it was plugged in. So I got to figure that out. However, that's why the quality just decreased.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Don't worry. My quality hasn't improved at all. So I'm still using the built-in laptop camera. You should probably invest. Now, when you went to Joe Rogan afterwards, Gary and I conspired.
Someone literally just said, how was the Joe Rogan show? Actually, I want to tell you guys how it was, because during the show, there was a comedian named Tony Hinchcliffe who runs a very well-known podcast called Kill Tony. It is a live comedy show here in Austin. Over 200 people usually wait in an alleyway to be picked by producers to go do a minute of stand-up comedy on stage in front of Tony and other comedian judges. And then Tony will interview you. And I want to get on the show because I've done open mic a few times. I like comedy. We're about to have our special guest, by the way. And so anyway, during the show, Tony Hinchcliffe, I went to the bathroom during the show, came back on crutches with my cowboy hat and my crutches. And he calls me out in the audience and asks me why I have crutches, and was actually kind of a jerk. Anyway, so trying to get on to Kill Tony. Apparently some of you guys know what Kill Tony is. So trying to make a minute routine so that I can get on Kill Tony and have it be on this very well-known podcast. But in the meantime, I want to welcome our special guest, because we're going to make this chat even more interesting. So, familiar face, Joe Tegmeyer.
Joe, how you doing? All right. Nice to see you.
I'm sorry for the people that thought it was Elon, because apparently a lot of people thought it was being Elon.
Well, some people think I look exactly like him, so maybe I can, stand in for him. I don't know.
Really?
No.
Okay, I was like, who? So Joe is watching the stream, and Joe actually, even though many of you know him for his drone skills and for Tesla coverage, Joe also likes to talk about rockets. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not just the drone guy sitting on the side of the road flying the drones. My background is actually in aeronautical and astronautical engineering.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the space chat. I'm sure you heard that I may need another surgery, and so we're just going to try to do some more live streams and, keep occupied, since I can't be doing all the active things that I would like to be doing.
Well, like I said, when we were down at Starbase and you were hobbling around on your crutches, it became kind of an iconic thing for Ellie in space, and everybody could recognize you from miles away. So I think you're taking this a little bit too far, Ellie.
It's true, but I don't want to be synonymous with crutches. I don't want this to be my brand. Man. Yeah. But anyway, so we're talking, obviously we're talking a little bit about Starliner. I'm sure you've been listening. Is there anything that you wanted to jump in on, or should we completely pivot to something else?
You maybe just pivot to something else. I've been listening on and off. I've actually been working on another video on FSD for 11.4.2. I went out and did some more tests on it, and trying to put that together today, and trying to do it in a little bit different way than most people do it, and provide some additional information and hopefully make it better. But so anyway, I've been listening off and on with you guys.
So, and we talked about that, and I want to know, Scott, because you have a Tesla as well. Do you have the latest version, and what do you think?
Yes, I do.
And
okay, and the first thing is I've got the last two versions. I got them at least a week before John Gibbs. I just have to put that out there. He just got his like yesterday, the day before, and I've had mine for well over a week. Yeah, so. It's definitely, it's one of those things that it's good. You can see improvements in some areas and still a few where there's a little bit of regressions, and then it seems like it also magically gets better. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I would say it's a little bit better in taking some turns. So sometimes it would be hesitating a little bit, but I do like the kinematics of the turns now. So it goes in, it's a little bit smoother. So, and I know that for sure because like the one road that I have that comes right into my house, it just never was getting that right. It was like always kind of overshooting. It's kind of narrow and it'd always be kind of hesitating. And it's one of those roads that, yeah, the first time you drive down there, if you're not familiar, you might not be an expert at it. But once you kind of know where the road is, you know exactly how to do that turn. It's doing that now. So it's definitely improved on that.
Yeah,
And,
I would say my experience has been completely the opposite. It has multiple regressions. Mostly lane decisions have been much worse, especially in the area that I'm here in Texas. Speed control, figuring out the speed limits. I know some people have talked about that and they said, well, it's just a navigation database issue. If they just had that fixed, it would be fine. That's only half of the equation here. There's actually, in my mind, two main variables. There's one, knowing what the speed limit should be, and that would be something that might be in the database. But the other, and I don't know if they can use the occupancy network for this reason, but they are able to detect the cars around you. Say you're on a highway and you're driving 70 miles an hour. It can detect the cars around you and it knows that they're there. They know that they are objects and they know that those are things that they need to avoid. But what it doesn't do, and I really wish it did, is I wish it had an awareness that if you're driving 70 on a highway and everybody else around you is roughly driving the same speed, that all of a sudden deciding I need to be at 50 miles an hour and doing it immediately is wrong. It should realize that it's not appropriate time to do that. And I think they need to add that to, for example, the speed. And one other thing that's very troubling to me, and that's what I'm trying to work on right now, is near where I live, there's an intersection of two basically rural highways, and they're about 60-mile-per-hour roads. And they meet in a four-way intersection with four-way stop signs and a flashing red light. And
so can I pull up your video really quickly? It's on your Twitter, right?
Well, yeah, but this is not going to be on that video.
Okay.
This is one I'm working on just today, and I went out and filmed it.
Okay.
But the problem is up until 11.4.2, it's always detected that intersection and the flashing red lights, despite some curvy roads before that. And it would come to a nice stop. Sometimes a little jerky, but it always came to a stop. It's not doing that anymore. It's perfectly happy to drive 60 miles per hour through that intersection. And I just went out and I documented that 2 of the 4 directions with both a Model S and a Model 3 to illustrate that it's not just one vehicle, it's both. To also illustrate that its behavior is consistent between the cars, which actually is a positive. It's showing, that the stack is not the vehicle dependent. It's pretty good in that case, but it completely blows off that stop sign, and it would be perfectly happy to go through. And it's a busy intersection, and it's pretty dangerous. And I did it 4 different times today with 2 different cars, and it was perfectly happy to go right through it at 60 miles an hour.
Wow.
So that's a major regression that I don't know why. 11.3.6 was really, really good, but this one is not. And one other behavior that I'm documenting is on unmarked roads, which is pretty common around where I live. 11.3.6 finally fixed it so it would go to the right and stay to the right and progress in a safe manner. 11.4.2 now drives right down the center of the road, even if there's a car coming at me, and it forces them to have to dodge to the right off to the shoulder of the road to avoid me. That's a really bad regression that needs to be fixed. And I did that 2 different cars and 2 different places to prove that it's something that's repeatable. It's not just a random error.
Yeah. 2 points, Joe. The first, what you were talking about, the speed limit changes, that's exactly what I felt, that whether there's cars around you or not, sometimes it's too abrupt when it changes. And I wish either it would start to slow down earlier and just do a glide, because there's a lot of G-force. There's more than enough to spill your coffee when it goes from like a 45 to a 35 or anything like that. Also, sometimes maybe it needs to speed up a little bit faster. So I've been thinking, I wish it would read the mood of the traffic.
Exactly.
Because based on that, that's what the speed setting should be, because it's much safer. So that's the first thing. The second,
and just to add to that, by the way, real quick, as you as a regular human driver driving down the road, when you start putting the brakes on, do you not naturally look in the rearview mirror to see who's behind you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. But before I do that, and so before I even put the brakes on, it's like I ease off of the gas pedal, looking to make sure that there's no one right there, and then try to come down and then nicely glide in there. And the passengers are not even aware that I've changed the speed, because if you do it right, it's always very abrupt. The other with the lane changes, are your lane changes on normal roads? You don't like the way it's behaving on normal roads or on the highway?
Well, and for this particular case, and I re-demonstrated it again today, so I kind of reenacted my original video that Ellie was talking about, is on another rural highway. It's let's say it's 2 lanes, and then there's a merge lane on the right that comes in from a frontage road. But that merge lane is also a turn lane that comes to an abrupt end. The car, regardless of whether you're on the merge lane or on the highway, will select the right lane, and it doesn't realize that the lane ends, and it will be happy to drive right through that. And I did it 3 times in my previous video, and I did it 2 more times with 2 different vehicles today. But this time I made sure, I went ahead and disengaged before it got to the really bad spot. I just did it long enough to demonstrate that it's still continuing that. And that is really bad, not only because the lane comes to an end and the car has to really put the brakes on to figure out what's going on, but then its decision is, well, then I need to be back into the left lane, the center lane of the highway, and it immediately swerves back over there, whether there's cars there or not.
Right, and it drives the cars crazy.
Mark wants to know, can you get that information to Chuck Cook? He has Elon's ear for where to train those kinds of corner cases.
Yeah, I've actually been talking to Chuck, and he's reviewed my video, and he told me that the way I presented it was very good, and encouraged me to continue.
Okay. What did he think about it? Is he having the same problems?
I know he went out today to go try some merge lanes and some videos. I have not had a chance to see if he's completed those or not.
Okay.
How about navigation errors? I had to bring my daughter back to the airport on Monday, and I was kind of surprised that coming along the highway, and there was a split going on, would it be 295 over to 395, and it was supposed to stay on the main highway, and it just decided it wanted to be in that rightmost lane and actually take that exit. I'm like, whoa.
That's exactly what I documented in the previous video.
And that's what I wonder, is like, it should know that is an exit lane as opposed to just another lane you can occupy. But as far as lane changes, I've actually noticed some behavior that's good. And do you have it in assertive mode or an average mode?
I've tried both. Okay,
because what I've noticed is that I was going along drive, and I'll be going about 80 into 70 or something like that, and which usually means it sometimes wants to get over into the third lane, and there'll always be, this is Florida, there'll always be a car coming up close to you, and usually I would have to coax it back and over to allow that vehicle to get by. And I was surprised the other day, I was just about ready to hit the blinker to convince it to go over, and it went over on its own. I'm like, wow, I'd never seen that before. So it knew to get itself over and came back, and then it did it a few times. And one time there was a vehicle in the middle lane, and that was not going my speed, and it actually had to slow down a little bit to get over, to get out of the way, and went back. I said, wow, that's amazing. And I was talking to John Gibbs about that. I said, have you ever seen that before? He says, no, he's never seen it. We checked it. He has assertive, I don't. So I went up to assertive, and it didn't do it anymore. And John's moved his back down to average, and it's like, it does it. So it's rather interesting. It will get out of the leftmost lane if you're an average. It should do that also, I think, in assertive, because So it is noticing that when someone is coming fast, and a lot of times it actually got over at the right time. It didn't wait for the person to really be tailgating you. It was like they're coming pretty fast, get over, let them by, slip right back out.
Yeah.
So that's an improvement.
Yeah, I would say, and this is sort of off the top of my head, it's more anecdotal kind of evidence, but when I'm on Interstate 35 and I have 3 lanes, it actually does pretty well, like you described. But when I'm on a rural highway where it's either a single lane or just 2 lanes, it doesn't do it very well. So maybe that's a delineation between the 2 cases that may be important. Right now, I'm doing most of my views on rural highways because that's where I'm having by far the number of disconnects. Now, there's actually something else. I'm sort of stealing a little bit of my thunder on my video, but it's a very interesting navigation database issue. You brought that up that I noticed today. When I'm taking the route that I did on my previous video, but if I don't let it take the frontage road, I disengage and keep it onto the highway. What's very interesting is that immediately it's going up over a bridge, and that bridge goes over the crossing road underneath it that the frontage road would take you to. And there's stoplights there. And the car on the top of the bridge, when it approaches where the stoplights are and the road underneath the bridge, it comes to a stop as if it's acting, it's seeing the stop signs or the signals. And it's doing that repeatedly every single time. And I went on a map and I've kind of come up with where that road is underneath the bridge that I'm on. And the bridge is relatively new. It's been built within the last year or so. But the car is, I think, seeing in the database that there's a road with a stop sign. And even though I'm on a bridge, 10 meters above it, 15 meters above it, it's stopping as if that it
It's
needs.
thinking it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen other cars, not Teslas, pick up the speed from like a road that's going over. So I'll be in the Autobahn and then suddenly it says, oh, speed is now 60 kilometers per hour. And you can't figure out what it is. And then you realize because you just went underneath a road that was marked 60.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Ellie, I didn't mean to hijack your show on 11.4.2, but that's just what I'm working on right now.
I was going to say, maybe we can go back to some space chat. And Alan, thank you for the super chat. He says, love the outfit, love the lighting, love the live streams. Tried to fix my lighting in here a little bit. I did have a good camera going earlier, but it died. But still, we are.
Ellie, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Can you be in the middle?
Oh.
You're able to move it around?
I don't know how to.
I feel like we're doing Brady Bunch or something.
Yeah, exactly. No, just
version of it.
Do something like that. Oh, it's rather. It just sets it. So you're always. Oh, there we go. That's better.
Hey.
So yes, you're the center of attention. So that's where you belong. Okay.
Nice. So we did have another comment going back to Blue Origin. Let me see where it was. Yes, Ricker, thank you for the super chat. Apollo lander ascent stage had a tilt limit angle of 12 to 15 degrees. They'll be more critical for Blue Origin or Starship's lander. No. So I guess he's asking the question to you guys.
Oh,
yeah, that's a good question because I think what they're talking about is the height versus its width and whether or not that's going to affect its tilt. I don't know, Scott, what do you think? I would think that one thing to take into account is where is the center of mass. And if you look at the Blue Origin one where it has the tanks above it, you would presume that at least a portion of the hydrogen and the oxygen would be used by the time that they land. So the center of gravity would be lower. So that would affect the tilt amount. I would think for the Starship, very similar because of where the tanks are and also the engines and the weight of it. So I think it is an issue, and I know what he's saying, but I think that it may be able to take some more tilt than you would expect. I don't know. What do you think?
That's exactly the point I was going to make, is that when it comes down, it's not quite as top heavy as it was when it started. So a lot of it will be reduced, and you do have the tanks down here. It seems like it has a pretty wide stance down there as far as the legs. And then when you do the comparison of the aspect ratio to the SpaceX lunar lander, that's the one you might be a bit more concerned about. Now, they beefed up the legs versus the original. So if you remember, the original proposal was like wait a minute, what are you landing on?
Mm.
To me, it looked like that thing was going to fall over. So they probably realized, yeah, we need to have something a little bit more to kind of prevent that.
Mhm.
One of the things that you don't have to worry about on the moon is you don't have to worry about wind,
That's true.
high winds or anything like that. So the only thing would be getting the center of gravity over, to the point that the center of gravity would have to be over that edge there for it to fall, right? If I remember my engineering right. And the center of gravity might be starting about here when you descend, but then it starts to come all the way on down. Now it's a bit funny with this because you always have. I think the header tanks are still what you would probably have to take off, or is that going to be different for the lunar lander?
I don't
Because the
think
header tanks are for landing on Earth.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to have header tanks or not, because I think, I may be wrong, but I think header tanks are kind of important for the flip maneuver.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So the center of gravity is probably going down. So all you have to do is, if you imagine the center of gravity is here, draw a line to there and figure out what that angle is, and it will give you an idea of how much tilt you would be able to have.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the other thing I'm assuming is that they're not really going to try to land on a tilted surface.
No, I think they'll have a pretty good idea of where the landing zone is. But there is another option too. I mean, this is just a rendering. There's no reason why they couldn't make the legs even longer or wider stance, because once it gets out of the atmosphere, they can extend the legs and they never have to bring them back up. So having a mechanism to be able to fold them up and back is not really required. So
I agree. And I was thinking the same thing when I was looking at this original one of the Blue Origin and seeing this mechanism here, and almost wondering, it's like, what you can fold it in. So there is a place where it clamps in, because at some point it has to be folded in to get up there. But you're right. Once you're out there, it seems like you'd want to get rid of some mass or change something about it. Or maybe you have an EVA where you go out and just like, put the struts in there. Let's not worry about it. Something that self folds out, because it should be more permanent than as opposed to something that always has to change.
And by the way, while you have that picture there, I have a question. I don't know if you guys have asked it, or if you've had anybody ask you, Scott or Ellie. But one thing that I'm wondering about with this particular rendering and how it's configured is, if they're going to be taking, what is it, like 20 tons of cargo or so, where's the cargo bay? How are they going to get it out?
Yeah. That's what. Now, I think they said something that there's two variants. There's a human to person version, a crewed version, and then there is a cargo version. And I think the cargo version, is that the one that's 20 or 25 tons? I had the numbers written down somewhere, and now I kind of forget, because I think SpaceX, it's like 100 tons, 200 tons expendable. And it was something like 20 tons and maybe 30 tons expendable for Blue Origin. But I'm not sure how many tons if it's crewed.
I don't know. I just imagine myself as the astronaut trying to lift 20 tons of stuff out of that.
Where is it? There must be some doors out here where things kind of pop out. And again, we were trying to figure out, where are the engines? Could you find the engines on here, Joe? Could you find the RCS thrusters?
Well, the thing is if they're tucked up under that skirt, then they're using the volume inside for the actual engines. I guess, I don't know. Is it showing one there under that kind of goldish skirt or not? I don't know.
No.
Or is it just on the sides? They would have the same.
These are struts. These are covers for the struts.
Yeah.
So you get that skirt. And I think they have to have engine out capability. So there's been some discussion that they probably will have 3 engines.
Yeah.
3 to land, and then maybe only 1 to go back up, because you should be a little bit lighter. And then you need to make sure you have engine out. So the question is, do you do it in a triangular pattern? Because then if you lose one, suddenly you've got a vectoring issue. And if you're going up with one, you've got a vectoring issue. So maybe they would do it in a line and you would just have one in the middle. So a lot of questions about what the alignment is, how many engines, how big they are. And again, looking down here, we absolutely scoured this thing looking for RCS thrusters. And, these things here, if you wonder what those things are, well, those are lights, because you can see, this one's on and it's illuminating that. So that's just illumination. And as we crawled on up here, do we see any? And even up at the top, we don't see any RCS thrusters.
Yeah. The only thing I would caution about is, this is a render and it's done by an artist and it's supposed to be representative, but I don't know if it would be completely accurate, and things can change.
Yes.
So
Right.
it's really
Yes.
difficult doing engineering analysis on a rendering of a thing that hasn't even been built yet. But
Yes.
I also wonder about, what we saw at stage 0 at Starbase after the launch. What would happen on the moon if either the Starship or the Blue Origin one had the engines right at the bottom, that close to the regolith?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I did want to talk about Starship with you too now, Joe, since you're on the chat here. When do we think launch number 2 will be? When are we heading down south again?
I'm still thinking it's going to be October or so at the very earliest. And you have the stage 0 repairs and
Right.
upgrades. You have the testing of booster 9, which hasn't been tested yet, and then whatever whatever the ship 25 is going to need. But then you also have the legal ramifications too,
Right.
and how is that going to work out?
But they're moving fast, at least on the upgrades and the repairs. They're really, getting it done. So I think maybe we're thinking the longest hang up will be the lawsuit.
It's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't looked into the merits of the case, if you will, to find out what exactly they are arguing. But I would think that the fact that they already went through several public, opportunities for people to provide their inputs, they've gone through the whole process and they've come out with their finding. I think it would be hard now, unless there's something dramatically different, to be able to say, hey, it wasn't done properly. But that's just my guess.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that it was not as big a disaster as everyone thought. I mean, they expect things to come together, but as far as the environmental damage, anything else around there, it really was not that much.
Yeah.
Most of it is like, well, just imagine if it had really gone off, it could have been really bad. And I think, was it Tim Dodd that someone kind of pointed out a few days later? Remember the tornadoes and the windstorms that came through there? They caused more damage in that area and debris washing up on the shore than anything happened there. So it was very localized. There really wasn't a whole lot. And of course, it's like, yeah, okay, we promise not to do that again. We know how to fix it. So I think it's going to be pretty hard for them to make the case that they didn't assess it enough, or that there's going to be problems going forward.
Well, I agree with that. Also, if they say, most of the damage was caused by the rock tornado of concrete being thrown around, SpaceX can turn around and say, we've already got a mitigation for that, and here it is.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have some of that concrete.
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, Joe, get your tile. Do you have it?
Oh, I think he read your mind.
Yeah.
He read your mind.
Man, I tell you, so Joe found
one.
Yes.
It's not Fondag, but it is cool, and it was sent by a viewer, which is outstanding.
Right. And I got one too, but this is what I want to talk about. So this is beach. Here, let me switch you here. You found this on the beach, and you caused quite a commotion of people then searching the beach for their own pieces, and it blew up on Twitter. And so tell us about how that fame has been.
Well, first of all, one of the cool things is what it's inspired people to do. There was a gentleman on the beach shortly after I found this, and I sent a tweet out, and all of a sudden it's like all of South Padre Island was out on the beach looking for this. It was actually very lucky to find this. It must have been very early on the ascent when it came off, because later on we started seeing a lot of the flotsam coming up through the beaches about a month later, and that's really what I was expecting, because a lot of this stuff is very light and it can float. But this particular one was in this condition when I found it, and it's just, what is that, 6 miles north of where the actual launch was. So it's pretty good. But anyway, all these people came out to the beach, and many people got a chance to see this and get pictures with it. And one guy was so inspired by it that he made me a coaster because of it and sent it to me. Isn't that pretty cool?
That's super cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
So outstanding. But
this is my version. I found a little chip.
I think that is actually part of this particular tile.
Yeah,
because it was found at the same time.
Oh,
It will be.
okay.
Have we got any reports of them finding tiles very far away, like up on the north coast of Texas or Louisiana?
There was a lot of people finding a lot of debris, many small chunks, about a month afterwards, and it was everywhere from right near the launch pad up several miles on South Padre Island. But they didn't go beyond that to say, specifically, at least not that I have seen. But
Can you
I know the current.
describe the material more on this?
Oh, okay. It looks like it's styrofoam, actually, if you look at the edge that's broken here, but it's not. It's actually like a ceramic composite material. It's bonded to a stainless steel kind of there's a plate that goes here, and there would be one more here. And these are the mounting points that it would snap onto the pins on the side of the Starship. And to be completely accurate, is what they do is they have those pins that are welded onto the side of the Starship. Then they put kind of a white heat matting kind of against the actual skin, and then they put a mesh. The mesh is kind of a nylon whatever mesh, and then this goes on after that to complete the installation. And so on the other side, this is what it would look like if you were up close to the Starship. And this material is, like I say, it's a ceramic. It can take quite a bit of heat. There's actually been some people on the internet with their pieces, heating them up with blowtorches and stuff like that. And you can see them get really, really red. And as soon as they take the heat source off, it almost immediately goes away.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah. It's actually pretty cool. But the thing...
Well, Joe, go get your blowtorch. Let's do a live demo.
Yeah, it's down in my shop. I'm sorry. But actually, one of the things that's actually pretty cool that I don't know if people know is when they see that demonstration and they heat it up and it gets really, really hot and it gets kind of this red orange glow and then it goes away. People think that, oh, the heat just went away and it's just perfectly cool. That's not exactly how it works. And that's not the strategy that heat tiles use. Is what it does is there's like a heat flux that's basically as it gets hot on one side, it takes a period of time for it to go through the material. And what they try to do is they want to have that period of time longer than the period of time that they're going to be introducing heat, basically going through the atmosphere, so that by the time they get to the lower, atmosphere, it's thicker, it's cooler, and so forth. The heat's still in the back part of it, but it's not as bad as if it was direct, and it takes enough time that it will allow the material, in this case, the stainless steel, to be able to survive. Stainless steel has a much higher energy tolerance or heat tolerance than aluminum, and that's one of the reasons why this is so small, and the style is very different than what you saw on the space shuttle, for example, which were much thicker, and the space shuttle was made out of aluminum, and they really needed to protect it. Another interesting thing about that is that although Starship uses different versions or variety of the tiles, a lot of them are very similar to this. They're all kind of cookie cutter. And that's a big difference between the space shuttle and the Starship, because the space shuttle had basically 30-something thousand individual tiles. So if one got damaged, they had to make one specifically for that one spot. Whereas this one, they could just pop them off and put another one on.
Right.
Now, Joe, can you tell, is the pitting on there, was that originally there, or do you think that happened during the launch?
I think it happened during the impact to the ground or whatever, because it looks like there's some slight, depressions into it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, believe it or not, I ran into a gentleman that installs the heat shield tiles onto the Starships, and we talked about them. And he said one of the interesting things, and Ellie, you may have seen this, is over at the restaurant down at Starbase, they serve food on these.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
Trays.
I
Wow.
hadn't seen that. You mean like at Flaps?
Yeah, they serve food on these.
I've only been there once, but I didn't notice that. That must be a new thing.
That's cool.
I don't know, but yeah, he goes, yeah, if you were to eat there, you'd get your food served on these.
Wow.
Now to kind of explain what Joe was talking about the fact that the heat keeps moving in, I want you to imagine this, because this has probably happened to everyone out there, is that, have you ever noticed when you go to the store and you end up buying a couple of pints of ice cream and you bring them home on kind of a warm day, and one of them you quickly put in the freezer and the other one is sitting there just saying, eat me.
Mm-hmm.
And you go and you say, okay, I'm a little bit worried that the ice cream may have melted. So you open it up to kind of check it out to make sure it's all right. And you know it's a little bit soft on the outside, but the deeper in you go, the harder and harder it gets. And then you're kind of really, oh, good. The ice cream didn't melt. And of course, when you polish that thing off, you're ready to eat the other one because it's just kind of sitting in there because it was a 2-for-1 that day anyways. So you go back in 30 minutes later, you pull that thing out and you start eating it. And the outside of it is like rock hard, like you expected. But the more you start eating it, the softer it gets as you start to go in. Yeah. And it's like, how is that possible? And that's because that heat flux is still moving its way in, even though the signal is now freezing cold. Because you were at the store, you were out in like warm temperatures for 20, 30 minutes, there's this heat signal radiating its way in. But by the time you get home, it only made it in about half an inch or an inch or something like that on the ice cream. And as soon as you put it in the freezer, you're now getting this other signal. But that signal is moving in behind it, but at a very slow pace. It's not like a sonic signal or anything like that. So that is going in. The other thing that gets worse is, of course, the fact that it's circular. The more you go in, the cross-sectional area gets smaller, which means there's less volume of ice cream that you got to heat up. And that's why the core will get kind of soft. So that's kind of the physics behind it and what's going on. Something known as the BO number.
Starship is a giant ice cream cone. Is that what you're saying?
In some ways, which means like so that temperature signal is still there. And this is the other thing I keep on explaining to people is like the fact that the glaciers are melting, we're in trouble. Because you can turn that freezer on tomorrow and that signal, that 100-year signal of how warm it is out there is still moving into the core of the glaciers. So you got to get started right away if you don't want those glaciers to disappear, because it's there, it doesn't know that suddenly it's cold out. It's going to take 100 years for that signal to make it in to wherever the signal currently is, which might be at the core. So that's what's going on. Yeah, you take it out, it's still going to be warm as it slowly makes its way through.
Is this true that there are up to 32,500 tiles on Starship?
I think it is something like that.
It may be. I'm not really sure.
It might be more. It might.
Anyone
the
know?
interesting thing is, I'm not going to do the math for you, but if you want to figure it out, this piece of tile is 218 grams. So if you had, say, 20,000 tiles, you can get a pretty good idea of how much that number would be. That would be, what is that? Math in public, 80,000 grams or so, just by tiles alone, whatever it is. But added up, it probably ends up being several tons of weight just added to, in this case, one side of the Starship, which is kind of interesting because it kind of makes it a little bit non-symmetrical as far as the weight distribution across the Starship.
Right.
Yeah, it's the number. It sounds familiar. I have to go back because we did a video about this about a year ago with John on how the robots are going to be used to put the tiles on there, and there was some number that I had, and the number in my head is it's like 7,500, but that's a little bit different than that. I don't think it's 75,000, but it's in the thousands. Let's put it that way. It's not.
Do you think that Tesla Bot will be used in Gigafactory before Starbase?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it would be used in Starbase for yet.
Well, didn't you just say you think that it'll be used for putting on the tiles?
Oh no! They're using robots already, the industrial robots for putting on
to weld
the studs, the studs,
oh, okay.
The studs, and also
the
ring segments.
Gotcha.
And a lot of other stuff as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're using industrial robots down there. So that was about a year ago. We did a video showing exactly what that process looks like, because when Tim Dodd had the walkthrough, there were a lot of robots there that were motionless, and we were able to sort of figure out, well, what are they up to? And there was a stack of 3 robots, and there was like a ring section around there and everything else. And they had the special end of arm tooling that is clearly used to put the studs onto the rings. And then they were putting them in 3s. And then you can see the pattern that Joe has there of them to be able to pop on. So I was excited seeing that because I was wondering what the backside of those things looked like. And I'm not quite sure what the studs are. We know it's just some piece.
See, Scott,
somehow tack welded.
This is why you're not allowed to do the Blue Origin tour, because you will pick apart a picture and investigate and like get all this information from a picture. Imagine if they let you behind the scenes there.
Well, in the Air Force, for intelligence, we used to call it EFIs, which is essential elements of friendly information, which is pictures or, people's airline tickets, whatever. You get all those little things and you can add it together and you can tell the story.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, tell a big story from it. Yeah, especially if you have enough people that know little tidbits here and there, and you call up an expert. What exactly is this piece of tooling usually used for? And then you connect the dots. Like, okay.
To be honest, that's what Zach from CSI Starbase and RGV Aerial and Lab Padre and the NSF team do. Is they're all looking for all the little tiny pieces and helping to put it together to give you a picture that may be fairly accurate. It might miss a few details, but it's pretty good. By the way, the robot thing, another thing to watch for is in the mega bay or the high bay, if you see the starships or the boosters suspended and turning, they're doing that because the robots are doing the welding. So the ship turns, but the robots stay fixed.
Yes, that's what that was our suspicion a year ago, that they would do something like that, that as the ring sections come out, they would have robots in there that are fixed. They're called like an expensive torch holder. It is there. And then you've got to do something. So they must have it mounted on something nice. It's also very accurate to rotate it.
Probably a turntable of some sort.
Yes. Usually that's the best way to do that kind of welding. The welding machines have been like that all along. Any sort of tank that is built anywhere is done that way. Is just go ahead and rotate it because it's the easiest way to get a circular motion. It's just rotate the thing rather than making the robot itself go around. That would never work. You would get a really lousy weld. So yeah, that makes sense that you're doing that.
Well, are there any other orders of business that we should discuss before I have to take off this suit because I'm dying?
Are you talking about heat transfer there, Ellie?
It's been over 2 hours. I need to probably readjust here soon, but I appreciate everyone hanging out on this impromptu live stream.
This was fun.
We definitely talked about a lot of things, and it's just casual. It's fun. We're a little bit all over the place, but that's okay.
This is all right. What your leg is demanding, by the way.
Yes. So what? Sit here
and talk.
Yeah. Yes. Anytime, Ellie. Anytime.
Well, thank you guys. I would love to do this again. Joe, it's nice to see you virtually. Usually our live streams have been in person, but Joe and I are actually going to be working on a video here in about a week. So we're going to be doing a tour with the drone of the new Starlink facility, as well as the Boring Company facility in Bastrop County. So,
okay, nice.
So we're excited for that. I did kind of a walk around of that area before I re-injured myself. And people were like, you guys need to get a drone. Have you heard of Joe Tegmeyer? Maybe you can link up with him. Yes, I've heard of Joe Tegmeyer. So we have one more request to show the outfit. So let's show off the outfit really quickly. I can't show it off too much, but it's kind of cool. It's like this.
Yeah, you need more patches. More patches.
Well,
Ellie, here's an idea for you.
Yes.
Get your Patreons to sponsor a patch. So put together a list of all the rocket launches you've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, and that way you can get a patch, and then
I'm definitely going to put this on my suit here.
Yes.
I'm like tempted to wear the suit to I will wear the suit to Starbase, but this thing is hot in my home office where it's like not that hot, so I'll probably be dying at Starbase.
Yeah.
But you guys seem to like.
This may date me, but there used to be a show called Buck Rogers in the 25th century, and your outfit looks a lot like what they wore in that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
One person in particular. What was her name? Erin. Okay. All right. Look it up.
I don't get the reference. It's above my head.
Google it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
So we're getting more patches. That suit at Starbase would be miserable. This is true. I mean, Tim Dodd rocked that orange suit and like almost died wearing that suit once upon a time, and sweat his what off at many destinations. So but look at, he's about, he's going to go to the moon now. He probably never thought in a million years that making this, photo shoot with an orange spacesuit would translate into a massive YouTube career and the chance to go to the moon. Crazy. It's crazy. You never know.
Was, Colonel Wilma Deidre. Is that right?
That's about right. Yes.
It was Erin Gray was the actress. Yes.
Okay. We'll have to get a photo of this. I don't. Mm-hmm. Can you share it?
Oh, I'll let you.
Is this like not safe for work, or what's the problem?
No. Just. Okay. We'll let you look.
Sorry, I put you on this rabbit hole, but it does remind me a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing Ellie will be in space someday. I'm going to get pretty close with the 0G flight, which maybe to my advantage, it has been pushed back. So if I need another surgery and it's pushed back, I guess that's probably a good thing. We're looking at probably October, like late October near Halloween. So could be a spooky, and I know that they give you a spacesuit, but maybe they'll let me wear this. I don't know.
Huh. Maybe.
Yeah. But that's the closest that I'm going to. And some people apparently think I'm going to space. Like they don't understand what exactly I won. They're like, congrats, you're going to space. I'm not going on that little, Blue Origin hop. I'm just doing a 0G. I'll feel like I'm in space, but I don't even think it goes above 34,000 feet.
I was going to say, if the airplane ends up in space, you have more problems to deal with.
Yes, exactly. You booked the wrong flight. Yeah, get on the wrong flight.
Yeah, but I'm pretty excited for that.
I think, by the way, they go to about 35,000 feet, and then they descend down to around 20,000 feet, and that gets you about 20 to 30 seconds, depending on the trajectory that they're on, how much gravity that you might feel. They can do it in such a way that you can get microgravity, sixth gravity, third gravity, whatever.
Well, thank you, Erkin, for the super chat. We'd like to see Ellie in Starship's BFR commuter rockets once they start intercontinental commuter trips. When will that be?
Might be a while.
Probably a while. Joe, I do want to talk about how, because you are also a pilot, can you explain how they use these parabola maneuvers to make me, the passenger, feel like I'm weightless?
Basically, if the airplane is flying level flight, the lift of the wings is counteracting the gravitational pull of the weight of the plane. So as long as the lift and the weight are exactly the same, then you can be in level flight. But if you were to push over the nose of the airplane and reduce the amount of lift so that you're falling, then you reduce the amount of gravity or the acceleration that you feel yourself. And if you push over enough, then you can, get to a point where you're feeling no gravity. And the reason why is that you're essentially just falling through the air. So there's actually a really great experiment. I don't know, maybe you want to do it one day, where if you had a can and you had holes in it and you had liquid in it and I held it here, it would just pour out, right? As long as I have a hole at the top. But if I let go of the can and let it fall, the water would stop coming out because there's no gravitational, it doesn't feel an acceleration pulling the liquid down, which was forcing it out through the holes. Same kind of concept. Do you agree, Scott?
Absolutely. And I was thinking of that experiment as well. And you can actually look it up. I think, Brian Greene did it on the Colbert show a few years ago. So if you just Google it, you can see him doing that experiment where he drops it, liquid's coming out, and then it falls, there's no liquid.
Yeah, people have asked, how long I'll feel weightless, and it sounds like they do multiple passes, about 30 seconds each, for a total of like 8 minutes.
Yeah, but each one is going to be about 20 or 30 seconds.
Wow, that's short.
Yeah, but the airplane does need to fly.
Yeah.
You're falling pretty far. I mean, that's the problem. You can't get up high enough to be able to experience that amount of weightlessness. And at the same time, in order for it to do it, it has to fall at the rate of gravity, as if whether there was atmosphere or not, in order for you to have that sense, because you're not feeling the effect of the drag of the outer atmosphere. So it would almost have to accelerate itself down. And at some point, you'd be falling so fast that if you didn't have the atmosphere, you would be going faster than the speed of sound. And clearly you don't want the plane to do that. So I'm not sure how fast the plane ends up getting in that dive, whether it ends up getting like 200-300 miles per hour in the dive or more. Do you have any idea, Joe? Because it's probably not going to be more than 500, because then you've got to pull out of that as well. And that puts certain stresses on the airplane. And you want to make sure when you're pulling out, you still have a lot of altitude left.
Yeah, I can't say for sure, but I know that they will have it figured out exactly how much they need to push over, how long they can go, how fast the jet will go. And then they'll keep it within the parameters that it needs to be able to safely do the pull out. So however many G's that they need to apply to stop the descent and get back to level. And they also have to keep in mind that if they pulled, say, 8 G's, say that the airplane could do that, you as a passenger probably would not like that. So they need to moderate how much G's for passenger comfort in addition to airplane structural capability.
I think it's crazy that Stephen Hawking did one of these 0G flights. Like, they've been doing these for a long time and they have a great safety record, which maybe I feel like Scott might laugh that, you know, a few months ago, I was dealing with some serious fears of flying. So it's a little funny that I got selected to do this, but I would, you know, I wouldn't like give up this opportunity. It's going to be awesome. So excited, really excited. And I'm excited too, because I've never been to Johnson Space Center. We're flying out of Houston and they're going to give us like a VIP tour of the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And so it's more than just the flight.
So are you saying you need a cameraman?
I do. The question is, will they let me? But yeah, I actually asked them that. I'm like, can I bring, obviously not a second person on the flight, but can I, because I don't think they'll let me do that. But, you know, for all the external activities, because and then obviously we'll be doing it with astronauts. So it should be pretty fun. I'm excited. That's something to look forward to. Another surgery, not something to look forward to.
Yeah.
But again,
what I think is happening, Ellie, is if you are falling like for 5 seconds, straight up, straight down, you're already going to be going about 300 miles per hour straight down without any atmospheric drag. At 10 seconds, it's like ridiculous. It's like 4,000 miles per hour. So what I think is happening is that you're getting the weightlessness on the way up. So you're kind of coming out of a pole and then you're going on a trajectory up like this. So you get 5 seconds on the way up and 5 seconds on the way down. That's what gives you the total of maybe about 10 seconds.
Well, to be honest,
if they just like are going like this and decide to go into a dive, you know, within 10 seconds, you're definitely way past the speed of sound.
Yeah. I know this may sound like criticism, but I'm not. I'm just saying, you know, when the New Shepard goes up, that's exactly what's happening. Is they're on a big parabola, and when it gets to a certain point, they say the passengers get out and they can feel the weightlessness. The rocket's actually going up and then starting to come down to a certain point, and then they have to say get back into the seats. So they're kind of like on a longer version of what you're going to see in the airplane.
Interesting. Okay. Would you do that?
Me?
Yeah.
That'd be okay, but I want to go to orbit. I mean, it'd be like,
yeah, absolutely.
It'd be like you're running the Olympic marathon and you're 10 steps away from the finish line and you fall down. It's like,
that's honestly kind of what I think about Dear Moon a little bit, because I feel like to go all that way and just do a flyby, I'd be like, I want to walk on the moon.
Well, imagine the astronauts of Apollo 10.
Yeah.
They got down to within a few kilometers of the surface and just like,
oh, don't worry. Don't feel sorry for John Young and Gene Cernan. They went a second time and they got the walk.
Yeah, I know, but still,
Jim Lovell, you got to feel sorry for because he went twice and missed it both times.
But you know, at the time that they did that, you never know what's going to happen afterwards. So it's kind of like we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and all Stanford got after that was like the handshake in space. Yeah. But two of them got to go back and get to actually walk in. But now, even if it was just going, even Michael Collins, he was offered the opportunity to go back, and he was like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is rather amazing because he said it was quite the experience. I mean, he got a lot of it out of it, and then he realized it's so hard preparing for these missions. He just didn't want to go through that again. So.
Yeah, I wish people got a chance to do more like inspiration, but beyond the crew, just to understand just how much goes into preparing for that. It's probably way beyond what most people imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just interviewed Kid Poteet, who's part of the Polaris Dawn crew, and I was surprised he even had time to like do an interview because they've been training for a
I think
while now.
he's volunteering to have elective surgery for science is amazing.
Isn't that crazy? So what exactly are they doing? He explained it to me, but
What I understand, I may be getting some of the details wrong, but they're essentially installing kind of a shunt between, I think, his spine and maybe his head. And it's basically to measure the pressure that is happening when you're in orbit, and it's related to eyesight issues. And they can't, unless they do a surgery like this, they can't directly measure it. So everything is other means.
Wow.
But by doing this, it gives a lot more data than you can get any other way. But you have to have surgery for that to happen.
Wow, that's crazy.
And are they going to remove it afterwards, or it's in there?
I don't know. I mean, I would imagine they would remove it because it would serve no other purpose. But who knows? Maybe this is just my theory. But SpaceX is kind of building their own astronaut corps, so why not have him go on another one at some point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the Air Force, we used to do things called initial cadre, which is you bring a certain number of people, you do all the training for them, and then they can train more people. So by doing that, you can get a much larger group of people that could be, say, astronauts in this case, than you could by the current way, which is sort of an individual process that requires specialists to be there all the time with the people. So if I were a SpaceX, that's how I would approach it, is like an initial cadre. And I would think that like a Jared or a Kid or any of the other ones, even the Inspiration 4 ones, could be part of that cadre if I were approaching it.
Yeah.
Well, while I have you guys live, are you willing to do this again soon? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
No problem.
Well, thank you guys.
The guy with a drone that sits on the side of the road flying over Giga, Texas, talking about space stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, but you have like such a wealth of knowledge. That's why I loved that we were able to team up down there at Starbase, and people enjoyed our content as well because you actually know about this stuff, and probably a lot of people don't know that about you.
Well, I try to keep my secrets, I guess. I don't know.
But now you know. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'm going to get out of this spacesuit because I'm like dying in here. Maybe I need to like figure out a better situation with a fan. But I'm glad you guys like the outfit. I'm glad you guys like the stream. And we will be doing more of this. So, yes, everyone's saying have them again. A repeat of these two guests would be great. So people love you guys. That should make you feel good on your Saturday. And thank you guys. Awesome.